Hello, and welcome to Lower Makefield Township Boards of Supervisors, April 7th, 2021 meeting. It is now 7:30. Today you can dial in by dialing 646-558-8656. Enter meeting ID 230-936-1902, followed by the hash or pound sign. Please remember that there is a slight delay on social media, so if there is a topic on the agenda that you are interested in calling about, there's about a 10-second delay, so call ahead of time. And we're ready to get started. I'll pass it off to Chair Blundy.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you, everyone. The meeting of the Board of Supervisors of Lower Makefield Township is officially called to order, and I would ask that you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice
for all. Thank you. With that, take it. Attendance, roll call. Fred, are you here?
I am here.
James?
I am here.
John?
Present.
Thank you, and I'm here. And with that, we have a quorum. We're moving on to COVID update. Kurt?
Yes, actually, I'd like, Monica, there you are, to, with it spring now and with programming underway, Park and Rec and the pool opening, I've asked Monica if she could give an update to the COVID planning regarding recreation in our facilities. Monica, go ahead.
I'm going to keep it very brief. We have a lot going on, but I'm going to try my best to keep it brief. As you all know, the pool will be opening. We're on schedule with all of our projects to date, which is a great thing. We will be having a meeting for the public on May 10th to discuss anything that's going to change for the year or how we're going to adapt for COVID-19. The bathrooms will all be open by the end of the day tomorrow. So we will be cleaning those throughout the week, every day, Monday through Friday. Please note that, be mindful, wash your hands, try not to go in there with other people, all the other COVID things, mask when you're inside the facility. But they will be open. We also have summer camp starting in a modified way. Well, we are only taking 20 campers at this time. We are looking at some alternatives, maybe some 1-week camps here and there. One of them we're considering is a skateboard camp, maybe a science camp, or just 1-week opportunity. So look out for those. There is a large waiting list for summer camp, so we are looking for some other options. We are going to start with some outdoor programming in the parks. Please know that you can't run your own programs without going through the Parks Department. Please, if you are interested in teaching a class, if you're a certified instructor anyway, or you have any ideas, you can communicate with us directly at the Parks and Recreation Department. We'll be glad to work with you. Our first class will start in May. It's going to be an outdoor sunset yoga at Memorial Park. So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're looking to transition back to the community center. So we're looking at July, just to time it right with all the other things that we have opening up. There will be some COVID protocols in place. There's a couple logistics we're trying to work out. But little by little, we're trying to bring some senior programming in, some rentals in. So look out for that. Soon. The leagues are up and running with COVID protocols in place. Still, Bucks County is reviewing all of their COVID protocols. They're pretty much where they were last year in fall. So they're up and running. They're all going. Pennsbury tournament will be coming back in a modified way this year, which is exciting. You'll start to see some of our bigger events to come back. Looking at doing a modified version of Community Day. We're trying to make it more community-based and less bounce houses and high-touch areas, so look out for more information on that. The Veterans Parade, we still haven't found a solution for yet, but keep your eyes out for a parade, but definitely a ceremony this year. We'll be discussing that at a future meeting. And that's pretty much the long and short of everything. There's so many things that we're doing. We just completed the egg hunt, which was a big hit in the town. We learned some lessons, looking forward to doing it again in the future. That was great. Senior bags were successful. We had a lot of happy seniors, which was great. And we're just moving forward and trying to adapt, trying to offer as much as possible. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
No, I think we're all good. Thank you, Monica. Thank you for all that you're working on, and thank you for all that you and your team do for the township.
Thank you.
Do you want to head right into community announcements?
Sure. Just a reminder, during this portion of the agenda, residents and youth organizations may call in to make special announcements or contact the township at admin@lmt.org to request special announcements to be made during the agenda. This one is not on the agenda itself, but I do have it as an addition. TMA Bucks and TMA of Montgomery County and the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia are joining for a webinar to create awareness to educate and promote bicycle safety. The webinar is free and has valuable information to bicyclists who both use the paths for commuting or the trails for commuting and recreationally. It will be on April 17th from 10 to 11. You can find the information to sign up on our social media. Safety, the next announcement is you can safely dispose of unwanted, unused, or expired medications on Saturday, April 24th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can visit one of the 47 sites located in Bucks County, which we are one. And you can visit Bucks County Drug and Alcohol Commission Incorporated for more information on that. And that will also be posted on our social media for more information. We still have digital recreation opportunities. In order to register, there's a link on the agenda, or you can just go to the LMT website on Parks and Rec. We will also soon have a bunch of additional indoor-outdoor opportunities, so please keep looking out for that. Also, right now, you can register for the senior games. You only have to be 50 to register for senior games. So even if you don't consider you're a senior and you want to participate in athletic events, this is a great opportunity for you. This year will be in person and virtual. It looks like it's going to be a good time. We're adding disc golf to the agenda this year, which is really exciting. Please sign up today. If you have any questions, you can call 267-880-5700. And that's all I have for community announcements. And there is no one waiting on the line.
There actually is one more announcement. The first scheduled drop-off day, the yard drop-off day, is this Saturday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have all of our dates posted on the website. We will put them out on social media in advance of that, but we'll make sure that we continue to announce those. Saturday's the day, though.
I missed that, too. And there's mulch available during the drop-off. So I just want to make sure to add that.
Thank you both. Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any announcements? Yes, Dan.
Yeah, just another reminder. I think this is the last week to sign up to get your guaranteed T-shirt and medal for the Yes You Can 5K to benefit the Pennsbury PTOs and the school board. So if anyone's interested in, it's a virtual 5K, so you can run your own course. I did it last year. It's a lot of fun.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So moving along to agenda item number 6, is there a motion for approval of the minutes from March 17, 2021?
So moved.
No second.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? Any public comment?
No public comment.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Dave, did you want to say something?
Me?
David.
Oh, Dave, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I, at the request of the chair and the manager, there's a statement about tonight's proceeding with respect to Prickett's Preserve, just to make everything clear for everybody. At the last Lower Makefield Township Board of Supervisors meeting, March 17th, 2021, the applicants and the retained professionals representing the developer for Prickett's Preserve made a complete and final presentation of all aspects of the land development application, except for the two conditional use matters, which will be held separately this evening after the board's consideration of this application. The matter was listed on the March 17th, 2021 agenda as item 14B, which agenda was published on the township's website as well as on social media. As has been the custom since March 2020, the meeting was conducted via Zoom and public participation was invited and made accessible as it has done during the last 13 plus months. After the applicant's presentation, board members asked several questions about the development. It was announced that public comment was available that night as well, but that the actual vote on the application would not occur until April 7th, for example, tonight. After board comment, public comment did occur. 3 people participated: Lisa Broniger-Tenney, Tom Kearney, and Michelle, whose last name I did not catch when I tried to write it down. As no additional information will be presented tonight by the applicant, public comment will be confined to the information presented on March 17th. Those who did not participate on March 17th will be permitted to participate in comment, subject to the conventional rules regarding the participation. 3 minutes of comment per caller, with the request that comments not be repetitive. After all the comments are received, or if no comments are made, a public vote on the application will be taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So with that, we are on to agenda item number 7. Consider preliminary final subdivision and land development plan for Prickett Preserve at Edgewood. Plan number 670. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, James. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dan.
And if you would like, I can either read the letter in now with the proposed approval or wait till, I think we probably need that just, I know it's a lengthy process, but we probably need that for purposes of everybody understanding what the actual motion would look like. The motion would be to approve, as you already indicated, the plan number for preliminary and final land development plan approval. Tax map parcels 20-012-001-003, 20-012-002-002, 20-016-039, 20-016-040, and 20-016-040-001. The plan proposes to construct a mixed-use development consisting of commercial and residential units, specifically a Wegmans grocery store, 2 restaurants, 2 retail stores, a major chain pharmacy, a bank, 9 multifamily buildings, and a clubhouse, in addition to grading, utilities, landscaping, lighting, erosion control, and stormwater management on 38.787 acres of land. Existing parcels as listed above are proposed to be consolidated into one single parcel to be known as Parcel A, which will contain both commercial and residential uses. Excuse me. Of 9 proposed buildings, 2 are existing and intended to be rehabilitated and incorporated into the project improvements. The residential use contained in the 9 3-story buildings, excuse me, will house 200 apartment units with a single-story clubhouse at the entrance of the living facilities. The preliminary and final land development plans submitted to the township include the following. Preliminary final land development plans consisting of 66 sheets dated September 11th, 2020, last revised February 12th, 2021, prepared by Bowler Engineering, LLC of Chalfont, Pennsylvania. Next, general project description and stormwater management calculations dated September 11th, 2020, last revised February 12th, 2021, with supplemental information provided on March 8th, 2021, as prepared by Bowler Engineering. Next, erosion and sediment pollution control plans, post-construction management plans consisting of 44 sheets dated September 11th, 2020, last revised February 12th, 2021, prepared by Bowler Engineering. Next, environmental impact assessment report dated September 11th, 2020, and last revised February 12th, 2021, also prepared by Bowler Engineering. Next, transmittal response letter to Lower Makefield Township dated February 12th, 2021, and as revised March 17th, prepared by Bowler Engineering. Next, site features exhibit consisting of 1 sheet dated January 25th, 2021, prepared by Bowler Engineering. Next, Prickett Preserve at Edgewood presentation boards consisting of 18 PowerPoint slides dated March 17th, 2021, is prepared by DeLuca, which were presented at the meeting on March 17th. Next, pump station site plan and details consisting of 9 sheets dated February 1, 2021, as prepared by Castle Valley Consultants, Inc. of New Britain, PA. All of the above and the aforementioned plans, as outlined above, are hereinafter collectively referred to as the plan. Unless otherwise addressed during the approval process, the approval of the plan is subject to all the terms and conditions contained in this letter. You, being the developer and applicant, this will be directed to the representatives tonight, are required to comply in all respects with each and every requirement of the Lower Makefield Township subdivision and land development ordinance, Lower Makefield Township zoning ordinance, all other municipal ordinances and regulations, and with the laws and regulations of every level of government having jurisdiction over any aspect of your property. All references in this letter are to the ordinance unless otherwise indicated. Furthermore, all references in this letter to you shall mean without further explanation to the developer and or applicant of the project. Without limiting the generality of the foregoing, the Township Board of Supervisors has approved the plan subject to specific compliance with the following terms. 1, if required, you must obtain beyond appeal all necessary and or required variances from the zoning ordinance, or in the alternative, you must revise the plan so that it is fully compliant with the zoning ordinance. 2, in addition to the foregoing, you shall comply with the requirements set forth in the letter dated March 11, 2021, prepared by the Township's engineering consultant, Remington and Vernick Engineers, incorporated herein as if those set forth in full. You shall comply with all requirements and determinations of the Township sewer engineer regarding the proposed sanitary sewer facilities, including but not limited to all requirements and conditions as more fully set forth in the review letter dated March 9th, 2021, as issued by Ebert Engineering, Inc. Next, you must comply with all requirements and determinations of the Township's traffic engineer, including but not limited to all requirements and conditions as more fully set forth in the review letter dated March 11th, 2021, as issued by Safe Highway Engineering, LLC. Next, you shall apply for and obtain the otherwise required PennDOT highway occupancy permits as applicable to this project. Next, you shall pay all required fees as applicable as set forth in the ordinance unless noted otherwise, and as determined by the Township prior to the recording of the final plan. Next, if applicable, you must obtain any and all necessary approvals from any and all other applicable governmental entities having jurisdiction over this project, including but not limited to the Bucks County Conservation District, the Lower Makefield Township's traffic officer, and the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. After review, if the Board of Supervisors approves that after review, the Board of Supervisors would approve the 85 feet height of the Wegmans clock tower shown in the PowerPoint slides. That's a part of the approval condition. In addition to the foregoing, as requested, the Township Board of Supervisors has granted waivers, according to this motion, from the following requirements of the ordinance. Number 1, waiver from section 178-53 of the ordinance to allow for 4 light poles within the Wegmans parking area to be located on parking surfaces, each of which shall be protected by taller foundations. 2, a waiver from sections 178-53.A of the ordinance to allow the light poles within the Wegmans parking lot to be 25 feet high, although the maximum mounting height is 20 feet high. Number 3, a waiver from section 178-57.G of the ordinance to allow parking spaces to be closer than 20 feet to buildings. And number 4, waiver from section 178-95.F of the ordinance to permit retention of the stripped topsoil on site for reuse with any topsoil that cannot be used to be hauled off site, which is otherwise prohibited by the ordinance. It is your responsibility, again, this is directed to the applicant, to incorporate the items in this letter in your final record plan, which will be executed and recorded after it has been reviewed by the township engineer. Please confirm your receipt of the conditions of this approval letter by signing the bottom portion and returning it to me at the address listed below. And that would be the motion. And according to the motion, as I understand it, as it stands with the reading of that letter, if the motion would be made and seconded, it would have to be, and after discussion and the vote, it would have to be a condition upon acceptance of all those terms and complying with same by the applicant through their representatives.
So Dave, is that your polite way of telling me that I should look for a new motion?
Or you can just incorporate just ask the prior maker of the motion if he would accept that as the terms of the motion that he would make.
I would accept that as the terms of the motion.
And Dan, since you seconded it, would you accept it as well?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Okay.
On behalf of the developers, having heard that motion, it is acceptable to the developers, and upon receipt of a letter setting forth those terms, the developer will sign it and return it, approving all of the terms as read.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Okay, so with that, is there any discussion from the supervisors? Yes, Dan.
More of a procedural question. I know this item versus the next item on our agenda is the conditional use discussion or vote, I guess. Dave, could you give us if you don't mind, give us a very brief background as to why we're doing the site plan prior to conditional use rather than the opposite?
I'm happy to. It's a good question. And this is something we discussed internally.
Right.
Because it's the actual plan would have to be approved first before conditional uses would be considered. It was felt like this was a necessary predicate step before the conditional uses themselves would be considered. For example, if for some reason there was a determination that the applicant's proposal will not be accepted, that would render it moot and not to have the conditional use here. So that was the reason for doing it. We do not want to make any presumption about anything the board will determine tonight before it happens.
Okay, thank you. I had that understanding as well, and I spoke to Kurt about it ahead of time. It's good for everyone else to hear what that is. I just have a couple of questions if you're good. Sure. Where's Andy? Andy, I was reviewing some of your review letters and your summary reviews. And I believe I'll ask you the standard question I ask you whenever we go over any of these things, honestly. But I believe I might be wrong on the date, but there's one letter here, one of your review letters, where there's a outstanding items section, right? After the general information, items outstanding, and there were I think there were 17 items.
Yeah, that's our March 11th letter.
March 11th. So it's, we're a few weeks past March 11th. Of those 17 items that are outstanding, in your opinion, have they satisfied all 17, or are they in a position to satisfy all 17 moving forward?
They should be in a position to satisfy all 17. I haven't received any documentation that it has been satisfied.
Okay. So Dave, the motion is predicated on them satisfying all these letters, right?
Correct. Yeah. In fact, the letter from Mr. Pokel dated March 11th is incorporated in compliance with all the terms set forth in that letter as part of the motion. Yes.
Okay. And from what we heard from the developer's representative, their attorney, sounds like they have no issues with any of those 17 items. They are,
my understanding,
essentially will complies, right?
Yes.
Okay. Other than, has there been, since our last presentation, have there been any changes at all to any of the plans or presentations or anything? Has everything stayed the same?
Everything's the same.
Everything's the same.
Everything stayed the same. Upon the assuming that the board approves the preliminary as final, then we'll go and make all the revisions required, resubmit them to all of your consultants. They're all will complies, and upon the consultants saying, oh yes, they've dotted their I's and crossed their T's, then we will present the final plan to the board for signature and recording.
Okay. A few key highlights that we heard last time, not to get into extra details or anything, but there's no longer a request for a waiver from the tree replacement ordinance, right? I read in there, like we said last time, is that you're going to work with the township to satisfy the entire fee.
Right.
It's good to hear. And I believe, Andy, you said that there are some trees associated with the new pedestrian walkway that you also wanted to incorporate into that. So I know you're still working on the final numbers, but that's part of the deal. The pedestrian walkway had been updated, and you got to, obviously it's pursuant to PennDOT approval, but that's moving forward and is part of the agreement. Dave,
Right.
Good. And then I think where what else are we talking about? The two other items, we'll talk about the conditional uses later, but the other items, after we went through everything else over the course of last year and change, the other couple of items that we're looking at include final coordination with the HARB, our Historic Architecture Review Board, for the the barn and the house on the site. So that input has not been garnered yet, but that's soon. That's in the very near future, correct?
I think we muted. Okay. If I don't know whether we were muted or not, but the answer to that is correct. We're working currently on our phase 2 archaeological study for both to present to HARB as well as the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission, and upon completion of that, we'll be able to move forward. But if I wasn't able to be heard before, the answer to your question is it is correct. That is, we're going to coordinate with HARB. We've agreed to do that.
Okay, thank you. No, I didn't hear you the first time, so thank you for repeating.
I apologize for that.
No. Technology is great when it works.
No, it worked. It's just the question who presses the right button.
I got you. I'm guilty of that myself. All right, so we've done all that. Then there are a couple. In terms of the trees, I know we had a couple of requests. Well, at least I did, and I'll speak for myself. A couple requests about possibly some additional trees at the site itself, depending on final layouts and whatnot. And I know I always bring up as my last little item the synthetic turf section and what the ultimate cover type will be there and layout will be there. I know some of that will be as you go into construction and making some final decisions in terms of those things. So the only other item, I was unable to make the special planning commission meeting last night. That was related to the sewer pump station, I believe.
That was Monday night.
I'm sorry, Monday. Yeah, I was unable to make that meeting, but as I understand it, they approved it. But could you give us a little background on that particular item?
Yeah, well, the answer is they recommended approval. It will come back to the Board of Supervisors on their meeting, on your meeting, I think it's of the 21st.
Okay, so that's not covered in this particular approval tonight. That will be its own item. Okay.
No. And from the township standpoint, it's a question of, does it comply with the comprehensive plan? Does it comply with the zoning ordinance? That sort of thing. And Fred Ebert said, look, I can't make a final recommendation until I get the flows approved by Bucks County Water and Sewer. I get I think it was also approval from maybe the water people. City of Philadelphia. Correct. And so the Planning Commission recommended Module 4A, and then we've got to present the additional information to Fred, assuming that he gets it and approves it, will then come back onto your agenda for approval to send on to the Department of Environmental Protection.
Okay. So we covered some trees, we covered the layout, we covered the pedestrian walkway, we covered sewers. I see Mr. Fiacco there. A big part of this whole plan are the various traffic improvements. That are no small issue here. Joe, we've talked about this a lot. I'm really just going around the horn to our professionals and just getting their final thoughts before we vote. So, you've sat with the applicant a bunch, come up with some ideas on your own to help them, I believe, to make things positive. Any final thoughts from your perspective on traffic issues?
Just the fact that the applicant has made a number of changes, and I think just about all for the better. And as they progress through the PennDOT approval process, we'll be reviewing on behalf of the township as we get PennDOT comments and And we'll just continue to represent the township's interests as they move forward with all those issues. But real happy with the way this is shaping up, and I'm excited about it.
Joe, related to PennDOT, we have this, one of our goals, primary goals, is the pedestrian connection to other part, a little ways down the road here. Since PennDOT is involved, do you think there's any risk of PennDOT stepping in and saying no pedestrian access or interfering, or not necessarily interfering, but fundamentally changing that approach?
I think we're going to do our best to convince, PennDOT. We're really interested in the safety of the pedestrians, and what we're seeing that as proposed now is in the best interest of the safety of the pedestrians. So we'll work together with the developer as they approach PennDOT to make sure, every possibility is explored.
Appreciate that. Mr. Majewski, you've been working real hard on this one, reviewing all kinds of stuff. Did you have any lasting concerns with where we're at this point, or do you feel like we've worked through everything?
I think they started out with a good plan that they revised along the way to address our comments from our consultants, from our advisory committees, the Board of Supervisors. And I think at this point, we're right at the finish line, that they're basically in a great position to finalize everything and get moving.
Thank you. Yeah, to the applicants, I know this has been a long process. We've had a lot of back and forth, a lot of input from a lot of folks. I've had a lot of applications come before me, various places with developers, and I will say you've worked very well with our professionals and our staff and the board with a lot of the requests and in some ways demands, which we should make, honestly, for our township. And you've worked well with us, so I appreciate that. Big developments like this always have some risk, some concern, some folks are a little uneasy about it, and for different reasons. But I think it's been a very thoughtful process. So I don't have any other questions. I'll be interested to hear what other board members feel. Thanks, Susan.
Thanks, Dan. Any other supervisors have anything they'd like to comment? Okay. Go ahead, John.
Couple of quick questions. Obviously, I am appreciative that you've agreed to some of our concerns, specifically about the township not subsidizing your tree impact fee. But I have a question for you related to the building that, as you enter the first entrance, it's on the right as you just get in there, and this is a sewer pump station, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you're done with that, who takes ownership of it?
Well, initially it will be dedicated to the township, and then it will be sold as part of the overall sale of the sewer system to Aqua, and it will become Aqua's responsibility.
And if I could ask the township manager, will we be compensated by Aqua for $680,000 worth of equipment?
I don't understand the question.
The developer's going to give us this property, and we're just going to hand it over to Aqua without compensation?
Well, it's the developer's cost, right? So there's no cost to the township for the developer's cost. So with that being a dedicated pump station, just like the others to the township, that would be dedicated over.
And we wouldn't get anything for that then?
No.
Well, it's also part of the overall compensation that you're receiving for the system. I assume that Aqua is very well aware of the infrastructure improvements that we're making, so that I assume that when you negotiated the price, it included the fact that my clients were going to build a pump station and dedicate it to the township, which would become part of the package, which would be bought.
Well, yeah, that would be.
Aqua was aware of the project and the infrastructure, yes.
And I know we haven't submitted to the PUC our request yet for review.
Correct.
And so is this on that request?
So our sewage engineer has communicated with Aqua that they understand it's there. That request has not been submitted yet. However, all of the contents as far as what would be part of that sale would be included. If this is approved, then that would obviously be added to that list as far as the assets that would be transferred to Aqua.
And so we had planned on this with the sale of the sewer system previously? Were all bidders informed?
No, that would not have been. When we put this out a year and a half or so ago, would not have included the cost of this pump station. The difference I would argue with this pump station than the others is that this one, in fact, is being built by a developer and not at the cost of the township. So it's sort of this transitional period of time where the township over a period of time, for example, we're going to be repairing 3 pump stations that we have underway that we've paid for and maintained over time. So this is the timing of this would have been that we would have not had costs associated with this, that in theory, at least, that we would be recuperating or partially recuperating with a sale. The only other fees that they would be paying as well, inevitably, would be tap-in fees and what have you as well. So again, the timing of this would lead to it in the end that it's just part of this transition.
So the Aqua will get the benefit of the additional customer and the additional infrastructure at no additional cost then.
But with maintenance responsibilities moving forward.
Yeah, but I mean, they're already getting a huge subsidy as it is. So it kind of makes the case that the sewer sale is really a very bad policy decision. This decision, however, is not 100% clear cut like the sewer decision is. And I could be wrong on it. My sense and my concern with this, quite frankly, is we're going to have issues with, other retail space not being able to thrive in Lower Makefield, and we're going to perhaps have property tax revenue loss or not much benefit in terms of the cost brought on with the new development. And I'm also concerned that down the road we may require additional public safety resources for this. So, and then finally, it probably will unleash a torrent of additional projects that the township will be facing in that area for time to come with additional development. So from that perspective, I'm not enamored with this particular project. And while I'll be voting no, I'm not, 100% certain that this is wrong. I'm willing to concede that I might be wrong on this. I hope that I am. And I hope that the benefits in traffic from the traffic revisions will benefit everybody at all times, not just the Monday through Friday period. And I'm hopeful that economic growth will be such that it's completely filled and that the other retailers and restaurants within Lower Makefield will do well. So I'm hopeful on those elements, but on the merits here, I still I'm uncomfortable with the decision on this one because I believe it's going to open up a significant number of challenges for the township. So that's sort of my perspective on the development. It hasn't really changed much. But I do appreciate the improvements that have been made here. So that's my comment and question.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? Okay, Kurt, you're on mute.
No, I was just nodding.
Oh, okay. Then if there's no further comment from the supervisors, we're going to move to public comment.
So let me ask a question, Dave, if I could, and know how many people we have on the line. You had made a point. So when we were talking, as we know at the last meeting, public comment ended, and you've indicated that the township will open up to additional public comment. So I don't know. We had 3 people call before. I think actually 2 spoke positively on had a lot of questions. I would presume then if any of those 3 individuals were to call, correct me if I'm wrong, they would not be afforded the opportunity to speak again. They spoke, and we're opening up public comment if there's any additional comments. Do I have that? Is that wrong?
No, that's my understanding. That was the impetus of a lot of the statement I gave before this happened. Yes.
So I guess with that in mind, I'm not quite sure. I don't even know how many callers we have on the line, Monica. Is there a handful or is there a lot? What do we have?
There are 4 on the line.
Dave, I'll defer to you as far as, what if your opinion is that or what.
I mean, that was my opinion going into it. Now the board and as the oversight site entity certainly can decide that it wants to take all callers, even if some are repetitive from before. That's entirely up to you. But it was my understanding, based upon the format that we had established last time, that that's the approach we were going to take. So I'm not the parliamentarian in the U.S. Senate, so I'm not going to tell everybody this is the way you have to do it. So, or that you're bound by it.
Here, David, public comment was completed on the 17th.
Correct.
So
anything tonight is something which would be, and I'll use the phrase an indulgence. It's not really indulgence, but you're being overly generous. You're being generous more than you would normally have to be, but given the gravity of the project, I think everybody is sensitive to the idea that people want to weigh in. We obviously have seen that in a lot of other contexts. So, we'd rather be overly inclusive than under inclusive. So,
agreed. Yes, John.
My bias would be to allow any public comment, including the 3 prior public commenters. I'm more than willing to have an open mind and listen to them again. And I'm sure that there are some in for or opposed. I think it's important to have constructive dialogue with those we serve. So,
if anyone else, you want to say something?
Excuse me. Yeah. Related, but not quite the same. There were. I don't know if anyone saw some of these posts on social media where there were claims that there were upwards of 30 people in the queue for public comment last meeting and that only 3 were heard, and et cetera, et cetera. Can we, I don't believe that was the case, but can we just address that before anyone?
I'd be happy to talk about that.
Thank you, Monica.
When you call in, I believe you're notified how many people are in the meeting in total. We have a number of people, upward of 10 people assisting, or 10 devices assisting in the production of the meeting. And so there will say maybe possibly 30 people are online, but that's 30 people running the meeting, the Board of Supervisors, myself, the Chief, Kurt. There were only 3 people on the line for public comment. So with that being said, the 3 people who were on the line had the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for clarifying, Monica.
And that 30 also included the applicant, who had upwards of 8 to 10 people too.
Thanks, Jim and Monica, for clarifying. That's very helpful.
And if I could add as well, we did have several other callers that night that thinned out the number as we move forward, because several of them, as you all recall, called in regarding Caddis project. I think there was 2 or 3, which then pared that down because this item appeared near the end of the agenda to the 3 that had called.
So with that being said, we will reopen public comment to anyone who did not have a chance to comment on the 17th. If you did comment on the 17th, thank you for that comment, and we'll hear from others tonight.
Okay, would you mind reminding me who were the 3 callers that made it through?
I have 2 out of the 3 names. And the first one was Lisa Berninger. I might be botching her name. Lisa Berninger Tenney, Thomas Kearney, Kearney, and then Michelle's last name I did not.
Michelle Anthony.
Anthony, thank you. So those were the 3 names that I had.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we will bring the first caller in, Mark.
Thank you, Monica. Mark, could you please state your full name and address for the record?
Mark, please press *6 to unmute.
Arcsercone, 2150 West Wellington Road, Newtown. Want to keep this very brief and say that please approve this beautiful plan. I'm not going to go over all the things that have been talked about with the benefits that this brings, but we're all very excited and quite honestly don't want to see this delayed any longer. So please approve this beautiful plan tonight. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Thank you for calling.
The next caller is Lee.
Great. Lee, when you have a second, please state your full name for the record and your address.
My name is Lee Pedowitz at 247 Truman Way in Yardley.
Go ahead, Lee.
Okay, good evening, Chairman Bloodby, Supervisors, Chief, Mr. Majewski. I was just wondering if any consideration had been made to a comment I had made. I don't remember the exact date, but it's regarding the overpass over 95. I think the developer said they were going to put an 8-foot wide pedestrian path with a concrete barrier. And my concern was that if you go over that overpass now, there's not much room on either side. And the comment I had was what that would do to, okay, I understand it would probably help with pedestrian traffic, except if you're in a pandemic situation where you have to maintain social distancing and you're walking opposing each other. But my concern was what it would do to vehicular traffic. And I was just wondering, my first comment is I was just wondering if that design is still on the table.
So is Joe still here? Kurt, who's best to answer that?
Mr. Fiacco he's one of the many pictures on here. Joe, can you address those concerns regarding pinching that down, as Lee had talked about, and safety issues in general with that, if you could?
Yeah, from a traffic standpoint, it's the intersections that typically control how much traffic's going to get to where they want to go, during the rush hour. So we don't anticipate traffic being backed up onto the bridge. There is only one lane there today, so it'll be narrowed down, hopefully to slow traffic, as it's approaching the bridge from either side. And the plan as it stands today, assuming PennDOT approves it, is they should hopefully the people are going to cross the road on the other side of the interstate. So the speed limit is lower over there, and by narrowing the bridge, from a capacity standpoint, we don't anticipate any problems, and hopefully it'll make it a safer all around for the pedestrians as well.
Joe, can you talk about, is there going to be a barrier separating the pedestrians and the vehicular traffic at all in that area?
Yes, we are insisting on a barrier. I'm not comfortable with having pedestrians walking along, a shoulder area that has something that's not physically, separating the motor vehicles from the pedestrians. So we have to, PennDOT has to approve it, but we're going to sit down with PennDOT and hopefully come up with something that everyone can be happy with. But we intend to insist on a physical barrier.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that information. I don't know if we're talking about the same overpass. This is the one on Stony Hill Road, which it's not one lane, it's two-way, one east, one west. And, I understand the intersections on both sides are controlled by traffic lights, but that doesn't eliminate the possibility of a two-way traffic on that bridge. And my comment is if you're putting an 8-foot wide pedestrian walkway with a concrete barrier, I don't see how you're going to get, like I mentioned during my comments, this is going to be like that Washington Crossing Bridge where you better pull in your side view mirrors or else you're going to lose them. And that was my comment regarding that. And the only other comment is regarding that pumping plant for the sewage pumping plant. I'm not that familiar with the design of a sewage system, but if that plant would go out of service, what would happen?
So Lee, you're asking if any of the pumping stations, as an example, in the township stop pumping, what would happen? Since this plant was incorporated into the design of this development, I would think, maybe it's just maybe it's just
designed to serve that development? I don't know. That's my question. I was just curious.
It's designed to serve the project. It will have an automatic generator backup so that if power is lost, the generator will come in and operate it. So it's got fail-safe systems to make sure that it is operational at all times.
Okay. Thank you very much. Stay well.
Nate. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too.
Jim, did you want to add something?
Yes, to Lee's point about the width of the bridge, the Washington Crossing Bridge is only 15 feet wide from barrier to barrier. This road with the 8-foot path and barrier will have at the end of the day 24 feet, 2 10-foot wide lanes and 2 2-foot wide shoulders. So even neck down with the pedestrian path, we'll have a 24-foot cartway width, which is wider than many of the township roads.
Thank you, Jim. Dan, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, it was just to refer Lee or anyone else watching at home that is interested in this particular item. On the agenda, we've included links to the plans, and in the plans, it leads you to a Google Drive. It's so easy I can even do it right now. There's a drawing called Stony Hill Road dash path, and there's probably more to it than that. But when you click on it, you can see the layout of the Stony Hill Road path, the new median that would go in there to which is, Mr. Fiacco, correct me if I misspeak, please, but is kind of serves as a traffic calming device the way it's laid out to hopefully slow people down around pedestrians, in addition to the pedestrian barrier that's up there. So there's a nice graphic up there a drawing that shows plan and cross-section views for anyone that's interested.
Thank you, Dan. Right. Monica, next caller, please.
The next caller is Nick.
Nick, please state your full name and your address for the record. Nick, please unmute yourself. *6, Monica.
Yes, sir.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please state your full name, Nick, and your address.
Hey, it's Nick Permola. I'm in Yardley Hunt. Thanks for having me. First off, thanks to both the board and to the developers once again for the due diligence and having these meetings. Great plan, as the previous caller said, but as we know, plans change. And so I've asked this question before, but I haven't necessarily had a clear answer, which is this project is primarily being marketed and sold through as the Wegmans project. I know it's officially called Cricket Reserve, but it's really the back of Wegmans and the excitement, enthusiasm around that from the community that has moved this forward to the extent that we're considering all these exceptions for this. No one is excited about apartments or drive-throughs. It's really the Wegmans that's shouldering the weight here. So with that being said, and even referring to Mr. Truelove's comments before about, he actually used the term the Wegmans lights and the Wegmans parking spots, et cetera, in his comments, it is being, referred to this in an official capacity. My question previously was, do we actually have a deal with Wegmans? And the developers have said yes to that. However, I want to know, just because of the unprecedented importance of what this means, have you guys on the board actually spoken with anyone in an official capacity from Wegmans who was acting in their official capacity that this is a go? I think last time we talked about, what the contract was, and I'm really not interested in that, nor do I think that's anyone's business other than the developers. However, do we actually have an approved in an official capacity, not on this from Wegmans? And if that's the case, then terrific. My question is complete. And if not, why not?
Go ahead, Kurt.
So I heard that at the last meeting. So as such, I have, without seeing the financial terms of the deal, seen firsthand the signed lease with Wegmans to occupy the site. So I have confirmed that. I thought that was important for this meeting since I was questioned at the last meeting. So I have seen the lease in terms of the length and the commitment to occupy the site.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
And by the way, for the board, that is a 20-year lease that I had was provided.
Thank you, Kurt. Monica, next caller, please.
The next caller is Natalie.
Great. Natalie, please state your full name and address for the record, and please unmute yourself by pressing *6.
Hi, I'm Natalie Brooks. I live at 1704 Grandview Drive in Newtown, Lower Makefield. So first, as with the last caller, I would like to thank the Board of Supervisors and all of the employees within Lower Makefield. This has been a 1.5, 2-year project, and all of you have, as I've listened tonight, all of you have really worked arduously on our behalf for those of us who live in Lower Makefield to go through every detail and to have the developers address everything from conservation issues, environmental issues, landmark preservation issues, and all the other issues that could be a deterrent of a project like this. So first, I want to thank all of you for all the hard work that you've done on our behalf. We've lived in Lower Makefield for over 20 years, where we live in Dolington Estates. I'm close to Newtown Borough, and quite frankly, that's where I go to do my shopping, or I drive to Quaker Bridge to get to Wegmans there. So the idea that there would be this desirable new retail space in Lower Makefield, which as a taxpayer, that I could go there, is a very desirable thing. So I really am encouraging everyone to vote for this. I also wanted to comment about the issue of present retailers being hurt by this development community. And quite frankly, as I look at what's going on in Newtown Borough or at Quaker Bridge, in fact, when you have an anchor like that, and somebody just mentioned about, well, nobody really cares about the housing. If I'm a local retailer in Lower Makefield, and now there are suddenly more people living in Lower Makefield, both a desirable anchor as well as more people living in Lower Makefield is an enhancement to the current retailers who are in Lower Makefield, because it will draw people rather than going to Newtown and other places. So from all the hard work that all of you have done, and also what's been wonderful is to hear the real positive partnership between these developers and the Board of Supervisors over really, I'm sure, difficult work. And from what I've heard all of you say, the accommodations that they have been willing to make to meet all the requirements that you've had, I hope that all of you will vote positively for this new development in Lower Makefield. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalie. Monica, next caller, please.
The next caller is Judy. Judy, if you could just press *6 when you come in to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Please state your full name and your address, please, Judy.
Judy Hochner. I live at 1406 Silo Road in Yardley. I did speak at an earlier meeting to voice my opposition to changing the zoning for this property. I grew up in Newtown, and I've owned a property in Yardley for 3 decades. And when the industrial commons was built in Newtown, it was considered a real boon for the area because it brought pollution-free jobs without the excessive traffic and township services associated with housing and retail. With the existing zoning on the property, you could have built a similar industrial commons, and I think you've missed a real opportunity. I think it's been wrong thinking to add unneeded grocery store and retail space, and the burdens the residential traffic is going to add a lot of burdens to the township. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for calling, Judy.
The next caller is Eric.
Thank you, Monica. Eric, please state your full name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Eric Rothstein, 1838 Windflower Lane in Yardley. And I'll be brief. I just wanted to urge the committee to approve this and to do it quickly. I think this is exactly the type of use that is going to attract more people to the town. I know previously there's been this trend where people are moving out of the suburbs and moving into the cities because they want easy access to shopping and restaurants and parks and so forth. And this is exactly the kind of project that I think is going to attract more people to want to stay in areas like Lower Makefield, where they can have easy access to, a great center with good retail, with great shopping and great places to live, and easily accessible by either car or by walking. So again, I would just urge the committee to approve this and move forward.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Paul. Monica, next public comment, please.
The next caller is Becky. Becky, if you could press *6 to unmute when you come in.
Monica, did you say Becky?
Yes.
Becky, please state your full name and address for the record.
Yeah, hi, I'm Becky Kent, 942 Rolofts Court in Yardley, Lower Makefield. And I, too, just want to echo what Eric, Mark, and Natalie have already said, that we hope that you will approve this plan. We want it, and we are very excited about it. We've lived in LMT for over 26 years, and we work right next door to where the projected site is going to be. And not worried at all about the traffic, because it looks like that's already been addressed in the plans. And so we're very excited to have Wegmans and the other stores come in. Being a realtor, I'm also excited about having additional housing, because we're lacking it right now in our area. So please approve this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for calling, Becky. Next caller, Monica?
There is no further public comment.
Okay. Well, with that, public comment is really, truly closed. And there being no further public comment, it is time to call the question. So all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay, raising your hand. Say nay, John, please.
Opposed?
Thank you. So the motion carries 4-1. Moving on to the next agenda item.
Yes, Madam Chair, the next is the conditional use hearing for the proposed drive-throughs, one for a pharmacy, one for a bank. I know the applicant has witnesses prepared to proceed, and I'm turning this aspect over to my partner, Barbara Kirk, to help oversee the meeting. Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, at this time I have to make a full and complete disclosure that I should recuse myself from the vote as it relates to the conditional use. Specifically, in the last meeting, the applicants named the bank in which was the applicant for the conditional use, JP Morgan Chase and Company. As many people know, I'm a former JP Morgan Chase employee. I used to work in the card services group, and I'm a former shareholder. JP Morgan Chase is a client of my company. I deal with them directly, and I'm also a very happy Chase private client customer. And I recommend, if you haven't selected the Chase Sapphire Preferred credit card as your credit card, it's probably the best one out there. So that being said, that I'm a former shareholder, former employee, current customer, and current provider to JP Morgan Chase, it would be inappropriate for me to vote on that one. The second one, the applicant did not disclose who the pharmacy is that is making the application. However, it's also important for me to tell people so that they know that my lovely wife, Joanne G. Lewis, is an employee of Aetna. Aetna is owned by CVS. CVS is one of the finest pharmacy companies in the world. And I believe they are a current client of my company as well. I'm a proud CVS customer. All of my pharmaceuticals are purchased from CVS, except no substitutes. Sorry, Rite Aid. So on that, I have to recuse myself for both of those. And I wish the applicant, whoever they may be with the pharmacy, the best of luck with that. in there. So I wanted to disclose all of the potential conflicts. I hope the solicitor is okay that I've disclosed all those. There's any specific elements. I can certainly claim pecuniary interest on the Chase one because that would, of course, be my new branch. So I would benefit from not having to drive to Ewing, but I don't use branches. Any other elements I need to disclose, and should I just go on mute?
I think you've been very descriptive. I appreciate that on both issues. I don't know necessarily that there is sufficient reason to cause you to recuse, but I'm not going to deny you your request because it may be a close enough question that if you're going to err on either side, erring on that side probably is appropriate. And I appreciate the fact that you've disclosed that information tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you as well, John. But I do just want to clarify something. And John, I totally appreciate and believe that your recusal is a matter for your decision. But since you did make reference to being a user of CVS Pharmacy, I just want people to understand that that in and of itself would not be something that would cause people to have to recuse themselves.
If I were just a CVS customer, it wouldn't be an issue. But because my wife is employed by CVS and my company has done work for CVS, and I've been to Woonsocket, Rhode Island to visit the fine folks at CVS, 2 or 3 of those would probably put me on the edge for that.
And in the hierarchy of information, I would agree that those are much more important than being a customer. Correct.
I just wanted to make sure that people who are at home under.
No, yeah.
Appropriate clarification. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I feel like John's recused, okay, and he's on mute. So the rest of us are moving forward. Dan, are you trying to say something or are you just unmuted?
No, when you were ready, I was going to make the motion, open the public hearing, but I will let you.
If you would, please.
Oh, you want me? Okay. So I would like to make a motion, open the public hearing to discuss actually, before I finalize that, do we need separate motions for each conditional use or both together?
Right now, I'm just opening the hearing, and I'll defer to Barbara, who is going to be running the show. So I'll let her rule on that. But I suspect just opening the hearing is enough at this point.
Okay, just checking. So I'd like to make a motion, open the public hearing to discuss the conditional use approval for drive-in windows and drive-through service for a pharmacy and bank for Prickett Preserve at Edgewood.
I'll second.
Thank you, James. Okay, so with that, Dave, Barbara is taking over. Yep, in fact, he's gone.
Correct.
And with that, Barbara?
Yeah, if I may, Madam Chair, because this is a conditional use hearing, it's technically falling under the realm of a zoning hearing. That being a special exception in that it is a permitted use as it sits under the ordinance. However, there are certain conditions that need to be met. As a conditional use matter, those decisions are rendered to be made by this board as opposed to the zoning hearing board. We have a court reporter who is going to be recording all of the proceedings. So we will be asking every person who's speaking to identify themselves for the record, in addition to those offering testimony as a fact or expert to be sworn in. I also have several documents that I've already distributed to Mr. Harris, counsel for the applicant, as well as Mr. Majewski and Mr. Ferguson, that we should have marked for the record so there's a clear understanding of what documents are being referenced. So for the applicant's exhibits, A1 will be the Bowler letter dated September 11th, 2020, which is the actual written submission for a conditional use application on this project. A2 is a copy of a 2-sheet plan prepared by Bowler Engineers, revision number 2, dated December 11th, 2020. A3 is the curriculum vitae of the applicant's expert witness, William Reardon, the engineer. And A4 is the 3-sheet plan prepared by Bowler Engineering entitled Overall Commercial Drive-Through Exhibit. For tonight's hearing, certain notices were required, one being proof of publication of the hearing in the Bucks County Courier Times. That proof of publication will be Exhibit B1. There is also notice that was posted at the property of the hearing. The certificate has been signed by the appropriate township staff member of testing to posting the notice. That certificate will be Exhibit B2. A copy of the actual hearing notice that was posted at the property will be Exhibit B3. I also have an email communication from Mr. Majewski confirming notice of the hearing was posted at the township door and on the website. That email will be Exhibit B4. There was also a 2-page memo prepared by Mr. Majewski to the Board of Supervisors outlining the requested relief as well as the standards for conditional use approval. That'll be Exhibit B5. And since this conditional use application is arising under the newly adopted mixed-use overlay district, a copy of that ordinance will be marked as Exhibit B6 so that we have a clear record of what's being referenced. At this point, it would be then the applicant's burden to move forward to present the information to this board and show that the proposed drive-through services for both the bank and the proposed pharmacy meet the requirements and general conditions as outlined in the township zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Barbara. Will you ask whether anybody wishes party status?
I don't know if you want to proceed at that point or wait till we have general public comment, at which time people can then have party status. But I will explain for those who are not involved with the applicant and their team. Members of the public are able to make comment as to the pending conditional use request, similar as if they were participating in a zoning hearing. They can ask for party status, which means if granted, party status would enable them to receive notices of any appeals or court actions that are filed, including a copy of this board's written decision on the conditional use requests. Generally, in typical fashion, party status is usually requested at the time somebody comes before the board in order to make a public comment. So I don't know if now is an appropriate time, since we are limited to those members of the public who are able to speak due to this being a Zoom meeting. We may need to wait till each member comes forth before requesting if they are interested in party status.
Okay, fine. I just wanted to raise the issue. I'd like to call as my only witness, Bill Reardon. May I have him sworn?
Yeah, and Mr. Harris, for the record, can you please identify everybody that you have with you so that we have it clearly on the record as to who is the Prickett team tonight?
Yeah, I think that I have Vince DeLuca here and his brother and Bob Rosenthal, who are all the ELU DeLuca Yardley LLC portion of the group. I have Bob Dwyer, who's a representative of Shady Brook Investors, LLC. And then I have our consultants, Mr. Reardon, his assistant, Jason Korzak, George Bogard. I have Josh Shapiro and Seth Shapiro. No, this guy. Oh, okay. And Mark Bang. I keep that.
It's Seth. What
did I say?
Josh.
Oh, I said Josh. I really meant Seth Shapiro.
And Mr. Harris, I'm sorry. I heard that Vince's brother is there, but I would like his whole name, please.
Joe.
Brother DeLuca is probably.
Brother DeLuca is Joe DeLuca.
Thank you.
Did I go through that too quickly, Barbara?
Uh-huh. So we have Vince and Joe DeLuca. We have Bob Dwyer. We have Bob Rosenthal.
Yes.
George Bogard.
Yes.
I didn't get Seth's last name.
Shapiro.
And then your witness, Bill Reardon.
And you missed Jason Korzak.
Oh, and Jason Korzak. Thank you.
Do we need to include Chris Williams and Travis North as well. They're not in the room there, but they're part of the team, I believe. They're on the.
Okay. If they're on, yes, they should be included. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, well, I also have Travis North, Matt Koenig, Lauren Moran, and Chris Williams as well as attending the hearing. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Did we really have Mr. Reardon sworn?
Mr. Reardon, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And can you spell your first and last name for me, please?
First name is Bill, Bill. Last name is Reardon, Rearden.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Reardon, by whom are you employed?
Bowler Engineering.
And are you a professional engineer licensed in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
I am, yes.
And how long have you been practicing civil engineer?
I've been with Bowler for almost 23 years, licensed for 14 of those years.
And are you the principal engineer in charge of the plans of Frickett's Preserve at Edgewood?
I
am. We've marked for identification your curriculum vitae as A3. Is that curriculum vitae accurate? Does it give your your educational background, your expert testimony, and your select project experience?
It does, yes.
As the board has heard over the last year and a half from Mr. Reardon, without further ado, I would request that Mr. Reardon be recognized as an expert in the field of civil engineering.
Unless members of the board have any opposition, I would recommend he be accepted as an expert in civil engineering.
Any opposition? Go ahead, Dan.
I'm not opposing. Mr. Reardon, I know you'll get this term very quickly. When you were asked if you were the principal in charge of the principal engineer in charge of these plans, are you the engineer of record that signed and sealed the site plans?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to clarify. Thank you. And I have no objection to him being recognized as a civil engineer.
Mr. Harris Mr. Reardon will be accepted.
Thank you very much. Are you posting our exhibits? I'd like to go to A4, the first sheet of A4. Okay, here we go.
So just so it's clear, because of this being a Zoom meeting, if there are documents posted to be screen shared, could you please identify the person that will be speaking in reference, because the court reporter then can't see the person that's speaking when this is up, the shared document is posted.
The only person I intend to have speaking this evening is Mr. Reardon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is sheet number 1 of Exhibit A4. It's the overall now approved plan of the commercial side of Frickett's Preserve at Edgewood. With the cursor, would you show, first of all, where the area of the drive-through for the bank is?
The bank is located at the northern end of the property in this location.
Okay, and so it's the, if you will, the western corner adjacent to the corporate center and Shady Brook Road. Is that correct?
It's the northern property boundary and directly adjacent to Stony Hill Road. Yes.
Okay. Now, and can you use the cursor and point out the location of the pharmacy and its drive-through?
The drive-through for the pharmacy is located to the rear of the store, just interior from the main access to the commercial section of the development off of Stony Hill Road.
Okay. Now, if we could focus in on the plan, the second plan in Exhibit A4, can you tell us what that plan is, Mr. Reardon?
This plan is a zoomed-in version of the overall site plan. It shows in greater detail the location of the bank as well as the drive-through, and it shows the location of the actual teller kiosk, which is at the bottom part of the screen. And then it also depicts 7 vehicles within the drive-through lane, which actually exceeds the minimum stacking requirement of 6 vehicles for a financial institution.
And that teller kiosk is going to be one of these pneumatic tubes that shuffles back and forth between the kiosk and the bank.
That's correct.
And that design has been approved by the bank.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, for each of these drive-throughs, there are specific requirements in addition to the number of cars that can stack. As you pointed out, the bank requires 6. You're actually showing 7. Now, in general, the requirements are, in addition to stacking, that the stacking lane shall not be used for parking lot circulation aisles, nor shall it in any way conflict with through circulation or parking. Does this design meet that requirement?
It does. The stacking lane is separated from both the access driveway as well as the internal parking circulation driveway by landscaped islands. And there is the ability to have full two-way movement in the parking area as well as through the development exclusive of the drive-through lane.
And establishments with drive-in or drive-through services shall be in a suitable location consistent with the intent of this article and shall not interfere with pedestrian circulation and the use of neighborhood open space. Does this design meet that requirement?
Yes, the drive-through lane is located at the far end of the parking field. It's opposite where there is pedestrian circulation from the bank to the parking field, and it is removed from the central location of the neighborhood open space between the barn and the existing house.
Now, in addition to specific requirements for a drive-through, there are general requirements set forth in the zoning ordinance. And I want to go through them individually first now for the bank, and then when we get over to the pharmacy for the pharmacy. The first requirement is that a conditional use shall be in accordance with the Lower Makefield Township Comprehensive Plan and consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the applicable zoning district. Does this design meet that requirement?
Yes, it is part of a mixed-use development, which was identified in the comprehensive plan, and it's associated with a proposed bank, which is a permitted use in the mixed-use district.
And second, it must be an improvement which shall not be a detriment to properties in the immediate vicinity. Does this drive-through meet that requirement?
Correct. The drive-through lane is completely separated from any of the adjacent properties, and its circulation patterns are internal to the site and do not therefore impact any of the adjacent properties.
The third requirement is that it's suitable for the property in question and designed to be constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be in harmony with and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity.
And this is, it's separated from the parking field, but incorporated so that it's part of the overall design. And it's located, and it's separated by areas that can be sufficiently landscaped so that it will have a similar appearance to the balance of the development.
And fourth, It must be in conformance with all applicable requirements of this chapter and all township ordinance. Is this design in conformance with all applicable requirements of the chapter and all township ordinances?
Yes, this complies.
And finally, is it suitable in terms of effect on highway traffic and safety with arrangements for access adequate to protect streets from undue congestion and hazard?
Yes, it is.
Now, if we could go to the third exhibit in 8.4, which is the stacking lane for the pharmacy, is the plan on the screen a blow up of the pharmacy and its stacking lane?
Yes, it is.
A retail establishment such as a pharmacy is required to have stacking for 8 vehicles. Does this design comply?
Yes, it does. It shows a total of 8 vehicles from the window to the back of the drive-through lane.
Okay. And again, the stacking lane must not be used for parking lot circulation aisles, nor shall it in any way conflict with through circulation or parking. Does this design meet that requirement?
Correct. The drive-through lane portion of the pharmacy area is exclusive of any parking, and there's provisions for a bypass lane that allows for free flow of exiting vehicles around any of the stacked cars at the drive-through.
And finally, it has to be suitable in terms of effects on highway traffic and safety with arrangement for access adequate to protect streets from undue congestion and hazard.
Correct. And this, again, similar to the bank, it's contained entirely within the development, and it has easy access to the internal circulation drive lanes, exclusive of any of the travel lanes on the adjacent Stony Hill Road.
Okay. Now, I think I sort of switched, frankly, between general requirements for conditional uses and specific requirements for drive-through. So let's go back and ask whether the stacking lane, you testified that the stacking lane is not used for parking circulation nor any conflict with through circulation or parking. Does this establishment with drive-through services, is it in a suitable location and consistent with the intent of the article? And will it not interfere with pedestrian circulation and the use of neighborhood open space?
Yes, it's, again, located to the rear of the building, and all of the pedestrian circulation connections are outside of the zone of influence of the drive-through. This is also removed from the neighborhood open space in a similar fashion to the bank drive-through.
Okay. And going back to the requirements for conditional use, is it in accordance with the Lower Makefield Township Comprehensive Plan and consistent with the spirit, purposes, and intent of the applicable zoning district?
Yes.
Is it an improvement which shall not be a detriment to the properties in the immediate vicinity?
Yes.
Is it suitable for the property in question and designed to be constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be in harmony with and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity?
Yes, it is.
And is it in conformance with all applicable requirements of this chapter and all township ordinances?
Yes, it complies.
And to repeat myself, is it suitable in terms of effect on highway traffic and safety with arrangements for access adequate to protect streets from undue congestion and hazard?
Yes.
I would move for the admission of the applicant's exhibits A1 through A4, and I have no further questions of Mr. Reardon.
She's muted. Barbara, you're on mute.
Sorry, unless anybody of the board has any objection, I would recommend the admission and acceptance of the applicant's exhibits as they were marked. And unless Mr. Harris has any objection, I would also recommend the admission and acceptance of all of the board exhibits that were marked as B1 through B6.
I have no objection.
Thank you.
No objection from any of the supervisors? We're good, Barbara.
Thank you. So they'll all be accepted.
I have no further witnesses. I don't know whether the board has any questions of Mr. Reardon.
Go ahead, Fred.
I just have one question. The drive-in through the bank has a pneumatic teller access. I just want to make sure there's no provision for a drive-in ATM machine.
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
James, I saw your hand.
Excuse me, this is the court reporter. Can we take the plans down because I can't see who's speaking? Thank you. And who was the last person who spoke?
Fred asked a question.
What's Fred's last name?
Supervisor.
Oh, Fred Weiss. Okay.
Sorry about that. And I'm Suzanne Blundy. I'm a
Thank you.
supervisor. And we're about to go to James McCartney.
Great.
also
Thank you.
supervisor.
Hey, Mr. Reardon, thanks for the presentation. Just real quick, have you worked on anything, similar projects, similar scope that we can kind of reference?
For CVS or, for a pharmacy or for a bank, we've worked on a number of developments in and around Bucks County.
Well, just to be correct, you're the engineer for the entire project or just for this piece of it?
I'm the engineer for the entire project, yes.
So have you worked on a similar project of this scope before?
Yes, I have.
And what project was that?
On my curriculum vitae, you'll notice that there is a pharmacy is one of the projects that's referenced. That is for actually an award-winning project in Lower Providence Township, which was a CVS that also had a drive-through. And as far as a bank with a remote teller, we recently completed a project that's under construction currently in Doylestown Borough.
But nothing of this size with the scope of this size with a Wegmans and multiple retail stores. And
no, so from a project of this size, when you look at what's on the curriculum vitae, Ellis Preserve is referenced. That is a large mixed-use development that has a Whole Foods as opposed to a Wegmans, a series of other retail as well as office and residential components to it.
And you said that's Ellis, ELLIS Preserve?
That's correct, yes.
And where's that located? What township?
That's located in Newtown Township, Delaware County. That's on a property that's approximately 218 acres.
Okay. And did you have similar type of, plans and fixes for the drive-through portion of those projects? Did they have similar drive-through, portions in that project? And were the plans that you're proposing for this the same?
Yes.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Supervisor Dan, go ahead.
Sure. I am for the court reporter. I'm Supervisor Dan Grenier, in case you can't see me. So, Mr. Reardon, the locate. You don't need to pull up the plans because I think I have them memorized. But the location of the bank site in the, I believe, northwest corner, but in the corner of the property there, is fairly well separated. It's on the edge, not separated, but on the edge of the development. So looping through, if for some reason there's a high traffic day at the bank, right, and they loop, all kinds of people want to use the drive-through for some reason, and they loop through, it's not. Is it your opinion that they would not impact traffic throughout the rest of the site, either pedestrian or vehicular?
Correct. Yeah, there's beyond the lane that's provided, there are additional internal circulation lanes as well as parking spaces adjacent to the bank building, which is building 3, as well as just to the east of that is building 2 for overflow parking should it become necessary. So there's plenty of internal storage and stacking should it become necessary.
And from a safety perspective, there is an ingress-egress point to the overall development in that same corner of the development, and not having the plans open in front. Can you clarify if that's a right in, right out only, or if it's you can go left in, left out?
The driveway, the far northern driveway, is a right in, right out, left in driveway. So it's almost full movement. The only movement that's restricted is a left out.
Okay. And then I'm trying to look for potential conflicts between pedestrian use and vehicular traffic that may, if on a rush day, let's say, for some reason at one of these two sites, and how we might mitigate that, and make sure those mitigation measures are considered within these conditional uses. At the bank site, I think you have it covered mostly by location, but you also have multiple means of ingress and egress and plenty of overflow, in my opinion, is what I'm seeing there. Would you agree with that?
I would, yes.
Okay. The other site, the pharmacy, and just full disclosure, I don't believe I have any business connections to either one of these. I've been a customer at multiple pharmacies, and I believe I've been to the Chase Bank in Ewing. They did hold my mortgage for a time. Anyhow, I do not have any other connections. But the pharmacy site, that one's a little bit concerning to me. So I wanted to run this by you. Mostly because it's closer to the main entrance to the overall development, right? Between it's sort of the center of the site between the commercial versus the residential. The main almost promenade-like entrance to the development. It's immediately adjacent. So there's some level of concern that we would expect more pedestrians to be walking by a drive-through area. Specific to pedestrians in that area, how many ways, or what are the possible methods for the pedestrians to avoid the ultimate egress or ingress to the pharmacy in case we do have it? For example, I'll give you an example of when I would be concerned. At the beginning of the pandemic, I believe CVS was offering. Actually, I had my first COVID test at a CVS drive-through, and the lines were backed up considerably. They're not moving very quickly, obviously, but they were just long lines at a standalone CVS, not in a development like this. So what would a pedestrian, let's say coming from the apartments or from that part of the site, whether they were coming from off-site, how would they be able to avoid interaction with that drive-through to safely cross into the retail sections?
The main point of pedestrian access is the trail that is along Stony Hill Road. That has a direct connection from the residential to the neighborhood open space and is completely removed from the drive-through window and lane. Beyond that, there's internal sidewalk connection between that trail as well as sidewalk that is on the main access into the site, as well as sidewalk that is on both sides of the main driveway that connects between the commercial and the residential. So I would say they would probably have at least 3 or 4 different routes that they could take from heading from a southerly direction from the residential to a northerly direction to the balance of the commercial, and be completely avoid the drive-through and any of the cars that are stacked in the lane or even within the parking lot itself.
Okay. And how many additional trips, if any, does a drive-through create for a pharmacy use?
I don't know. I'm not a traffic engineer.
Okay. I'm curious what that looks like to, and this isn't for you because you're the designer, but I'm somewhat curious as to what that will look like with and without with a drive-through. That being said, I gave you an example of getting a COVID test at a excuse me, at a CVS previously, and what that allowed me to do is to not, if I was in fact positive, that allowed me to not expose anyone that would be in the pharmacy by walking in. And the drive-through had a beneficial use, in my opinion, to the neighbors, because sick people go to pharmacies and you're reducing exposure. So there's something to be said for that. But in your opinion, do these drive-throughs have any potential impact on the pedestrian use of the development?
No.
Okay. That's all I have for questions. Thank you.
John, did you want to ask anything? I know you're recused, but I didn't know if you had any questions. Okay, great. Barbara, should we then move on to public comment?
Yes, I would say if you finished hearing the testimony, a motion to close testimony would be appropriate, and then move on to public comment.
Well, there being no other witnesses, can I have a motion to close? By the way, it's Suzanne Blundy. Can I have a motion to close testimony?
So moved.
Motion to close.
I'm sorry, Dan. Fred gets that one.
I'll second. That's fine.
Dan will be the second. So motion by Fred Weiss, seconded by Supervisor Dan Grenier. Any discussion on closing the hearing? Testimony portion? Nope. Okay, good. Moving along to public comment then. Monica, is there any public comment?
Yes, we have Lisa on the line.
Excellent.
Lisa, please press *6 when you enter the room to unmute yourself.
Lisa, please state your full name and give your address for the court reporter.
Lisa Tenney, 156 Pinnacle Circle, Yardley, Pennsylvania.
Could you
Can you spell your last name, please?
Lisa Bruninger Tenney.
Can you spell it, please, Lisa?
I'm not going to spell it.
I
don't want people to Google it.
Ma'am,
I'm a resident.
Ms. Tenney, this is.
I will spell it for the record. Lisa, Lisa, Bruninger, Breuninger, Tenney.
Wait, BREUNINGER-TENNEY.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you.
Ms. Tenney, before you speak, my name is Barbara Kirk. I'm the attorney that's handling this matter. This is a formal hearing, so you do need to be sworn in by the court reporter before you make your comment.
That's fine.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I'd like to for the Board of Supervisors to say no to these developers for the waiver and the drive-through, and it's not consistent with the master plan, nor is it a burden to the developers to not have it. It's inconsistent with mixed-use zoning. It doesn't increase connectivity of pedestrian pathways to the OR district and the town district as a mixed-use zoning is proposed to have. And also they advertise it as a live-work community, and it's looking more like a drive-to community. In addition, the lack of community and integrative community accommodations and duplicative community amenities that this offers, such as the dog thing, which we have a dog park, we have a swimming pool, and across the street we have live entertainment. So it actually just taxes existing infrastructure. Again, I can't see sheet number 2 where the plan that shows a 8-foot pedestrian pathway over I-295 exists. If they could show that, that would be great. I know that it hasn't been approved, but
We're having a hearing on the conditional use, so if you would please limit your comment to the conditional, I'm sorry.
okay.
Yes.
So that would be, but nobody knows how that bridge is going to be for the pedestrian crossing is going to be built. It's a big question mark. That's all I have to say.
Ms. Kenny, this is again Barbara Kirk. I have to ask you this question since this is a formal hearing. You made comment on your position regarding the request.
Yes, I did.
Let me finish. Are you looking for party status, which means you would be treated?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I'm looking for citizen status.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for calling, Lisa. So I'm just going to pause and, say that I should have been clearer on this for everyone. Anyone who calls in during public comment, as Attorney Barbara Kirk just indicated, will be sworn in, because this is not just a traditional public comment section, but an actual hearing. So the court reporter will be transcribing your testimony in a separate record. So hope that's clear to everybody. And with that, Monica, can we have the next caller?
Yes, the next caller is Barry. Barry, could you please press *6 to unmute yourself?
Barry, please press *6.
Hi, good evening.
Barry, you're going to be sworn in by the court reporter, so would you please give her your full name and spell it and your address?
Barry Kritz, KRITZ, 1451 Heather Circle, Yardley, PA.
Okay, court reporter?
Yes. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I will not. I will affirm if you would like.
Sure. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead, Barry.
I want the Board of Supervisors to know that I'm opposed to the variances and the drive-throughs that are being requested tonight. Not sure if I've phrased it according to your terms, but I think you understand the gist of my meeting.
Absolutely. You're opposed to the conditional use approval for drive-ins.
Correct.
Anything else?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Barbara?
Mr. Kritz, I have to ask you, you have the right to request party status, which would mean you would be a party to the pending action. Are you requesting that, or simply wanted to make and notify the board of your opinion of the matter?
I'm not requesting party status this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling. Monica, next caller, please.
There is no further public comment.
Okay, with that then, is there a motion to close the hearing, the public hearing?
So moved.
James McCartney made the motion, and who would like to second it?
I'll second it.
Fred Weiss is seconding it.
Suzanne, can I ask you a procedural question before we vote on it, on closing the hearing?
Sure.
Just in case.
Maybe you want to ask Barbara, though.
Sorry, Barbara, I lost you. There you are. I had a procedural question, Barbara, very quickly. Since these conditional uses are specific to the drive-throughs, et cetera, those items. One of the primary concerns with the drive-throughs is potential impacts to traffic, pedestrian traffic. At what point could we ask, let's say, our staff, Mr. Fiacco, to provide an opinion on that? Would that be prior to closing the hearing? Would that be after closing the hearing?
I would recommend it be prior to closing the hearing.
Okay.
And if you want to have Mr. Fiacco come in, I would recommend that he be sworn in and you ask his question. I trust Mr. Harris will not oppose.
Correct.
And Suzanne, I know we have a motion and a second on the floor. I know we had our official witnesses. I wasn't sure when we had a chance to follow through with our professionals to address some of the items that we asked them. So based on Ms. Kirk's recommendation, I'd request that we hold off on closing the hearing until we're able to address a few questions to our professionals if possible.
I understand that, and that makes sense to me. So does the movement want to withdraw the motion for the time being? Jim?
Yes.
Then Fred, you're good with that?
I'm sorry, I was distracted for a second. You want to delay until?
We're just going to let Dan ask some questions before we close the public hearing.
I'm fine with that. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I appreciate that, fellow supervisors. So, Mr. Fiacco, before I ask you the questions, I think the court reporter needs to swear you in, so I'll let her take care of that.
My name is Joe Fiacco, and I am the Township Traffic Engineer.
Do you raise your right hand, sir, to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
So, Mr. Fiacco, I don't know if you heard the questions I had asked Mr. Reardon about potential impacts to both vehicular and pedestrian traffic associated with the separate drive-throughs. And I'd like to break them down one by one because I think there are slightly different concerns on my end anyway. So for the first one, the bank, with its location in the northwest corner on the edge of the development, and I'm probably looking at plans there. Is it your opinion? What is your opinion about the potential traffic impacts, if any, and/or impacts to any pedestrian use in that area, if any?
What I'm looking at on the plan, there's really no pedestrian paths that cross over the general use of the drive-through, and therefore, I wouldn't be concerned about this introducing any unnecessary risks for pedestrian types of crashes, just because it is separated from what we would see would be the anticipated pedestrian travel paths within the site.
Okay, thank you. And then moving to the south to the other one where the pharmacy is proposed. My questions on that one are similar. Concerns, slightly more concerned because of its location more towards the center of the site, more central location where there may be more pedestrian access from the apartments going over, wanting to access the commercial side or coming down one of the into the main entrance and trying to walk through into that way, or some other location just because it's more centrally located. Based on the design that they have, can you provide an opinion on potential impacts to both vehicular and pedestrian traffic specific to that drive-through?
Yeah, I think similarly, there's no real pedestrian paths projected through the drive-through operation relative to exiting the drive-through. There's a stop condition, so it's pretty much the same kind of condition you have to the balance of the site. The vehicle operator will be required to yield to the pedestrian crossing the intersection, and as the illustration was shown, there's ample storage, but even beyond that, if you start getting back into the drive aisle, there would still be, I think, a room for vehicles to get around. And again, the pedestrians aren't anticipated to be moving in and around that drive-through operation. So I think it's isolated pretty well and doesn't raise a concern for me.
Okay. And Mr. Fiacco, over the course of your review, did you get any feedback from, and I'm not sure that you normally would, but I figured I'd ask, get any feedback from our public safety officials for comment on the conditional use on the drive-throughs themselves?
We have received comment from the traffic safety officials, and nothing was specific towards a concern for safety for pedestrians with the drive-throughs.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions. Thank you, Mr. Fiacco.
You're welcome.
Do any other supervisors have any questions before we close?
I do, Suzanne.
Go ahead, James.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure if this is for Dave or Barb, or maybe somebody else. So this is a conditional use that we're looking to do in the overlay, correct, Barbara?
Yeah, it's a conditional use arising under the mixed use overlay district.
Okay. Does the conditional use allow for different tenants of those drive-throughs? Are they specific to bank and?
No, it's specific to bank. If you look at the actual approved ordinance, it specifically states that following uses are permitted by conditional use. That being financial establishments such as banks, savings and loan associates, and credit unions for providing a stacking lane to serve a minimum of 6 cars for each drive-in teller window. And this is dealing with drive-in windows and drive-through service. And it's also retail establishments and restaurants providing stacking lanes to serve a minimum of 8 cars. So
can you define what a restaurant would be defined as?
I don't have that right there in front of me. But should a restaurant be inserted in one of these buildings that wants to provide a drive-through window service, they would have to file another application before this board to get conditional use approval for that drive-through. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm just looking future if it ends up not being a financial service or ends up not being, and you didn't say anything about pharmacy in the.
It just retail.
Retail.
Oh, retail. Okay, so it's covered under retail. Okay.
Correct.
And I believe that if the use changed, then they would have to qualify for the conditional use under those standards.
Circumstances.
Right.
So say a restaurant that has anticipated queues of higher than 6 cars would have to, or even any type of restaurant, even if it changed the use, you would still need to come before the board and get approval.
Conditional use approval for a drive-through lane.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess this question is for Vince and the Prickett guys. Does not having drive-through with these 2 boxes, does that limit your tenants? Does that limit your marketability of this space?
So James, this is going to be confusing, I think, but since we're still in the hearing, anybody who talks has to be sworn in. After we close the public hearing, then we're going to do what's more traditional discussion, deliberations.
Okay.
So that may be appropriate for that time. Is that right, Barbara?
That would be acceptable. But before we close,
yes,
just so the record is clear, we had Mr. Fiacco answer questions as requested by Mr. Grenier in his capacity as the township's traffic engineer. I want to confirm for the record, Mr. Harris, do you oppose Mr. Fiacco's testimony in an expert capacity as the township's traffic engineer?
We do not.
Thank you. So I want to clear for the record that Mr. Fiacco was being answering questions as an expert consultant for the township. Okay. So if there's no other questions of Mr. Fiacco and there's nobody else to testify, now would be a good time for a motion to close testimony.
So moved.
And I'll second this time.
Okay, so court reporter, the motion was made by Dan and seconded by James. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
The motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention.
So for this next phase, you can do it one of several ways. There could be a general motion to approve both conditional use applications, or you can do separate motions for approval of the conditional use application as it relates to the bank and the request for the drive-through lane, and then have your discussion, and then do a separate motion as it relates to the conditional use application for the pharmacy with the drive-through lane. Whatever the board prefers, there's no right or wrong way.
So I would prefer to move forward with them jointly, unless I hear any strong objection from my fellow supervisors. Hearing none, is there a motion?
Make a motion to.
Go ahead.
I'll second.
All right. Sorry, Fred. I have my
That
second
works,
COVID
that
shot
works.
tonight. I'm feeling lazy.
Whatever works.
The court reporter is saying never again. So
This time she'll fill in for anybody.
we had a motion by Supervisor Dan Grenier, and then a second by Supervisor Fred Weiss. So with that, is there any further discussion by the supervisors?
Before the supervisors speak, this is Steve Harris. The question that was asked before regarding drive-ins for pharmacies and banks. In this day and age, they're a requirement. I don't think I can think of a bank or a pharmacy that has been built, and even a bunch that have been retrofitted in the last 20 years that doesn't have a drive-in. It's an absolute essential. And any of the tenants that we've interviewed and discussed with regarding drive-ins for banks and pharmacies, it's an absolute requirement for having the lease. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dan.
Just to this is probably overkill at this point, but just to make it abundantly clear, because there are lots of rumors and discussion about this out in the public sphere. The way this overlay district is set up, anytime, and Barbara or Dave, correct me if I misspeak, of course. Anytime anyone wants to put in a new conditional use in this area, they would have to come before the Board of Supervisors for approval. They can't just switch out. Hypothetically, let's say this is a CVS or Rite Aid or something that's the larger of the two spaces. They can't just switch it out for a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A and say go for it. That's not how we envision the overlay. For all the reasons people don't want a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A in this type of development. The board recognized that, and that's how we developed the overlay, and that's how this development has come to fruition. So I want to make it abundantly clear that it is not. We don't have drive-through. It's not going to be a drive-through restaurant development by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't think, not to speak for the board, but I don't think any of us are looking for that. Would ever approve that anyway at this stage in the game. So I just want to make sure that's clear to everyone watching at home. That is not at all even close to being allowable at this stage. And I would hope that the Prickett folks would hear that in case something happens with their pharmacy that they're working with, and recognize the fact that we're not looking for drive-through restaurants in the future. So I just want to put that out there because it's been put out there by a lot of different people, and I think erroneously has been put out there by a lot of different folks. So anyway, I will. Kurt wants to say something.
I want to clear up one thing, because I was asked this question for Barbara or Jim. Dan gave a clear-cut example. But let me ask a different example. If it went from Chase to Bank of America, or from Walgreens to Rite Aid, if it's the same use of pharmacy or bank, would they have to come back forward to present if the use was exactly, essentially in that same category? Went from Chase Bank to Bank of America, would they have to come back?
It'd be the same, but the conditions imposed would have to be also honored by the new proprietor of the property.
So as long as there's no specific modifications to the existing building, and it was just CVS is moving out and Rite Aid is moving in, Rite Aid can do it as long as it complies with any and all conditions that this board may impose on its decision. But you can't take.
I'd be vehemently opposed to Bank of America.
I would have to recuse because I own stock in Bank of America. So
we're not there yet. But that's a good example that Kurt gave. Yep.
Okay. Any other discussions, deliberations from the supervisors? Barbara, anything else?
No, if there's no further discussion, you can call the vote.
Okay. With that, I'll call the question. And all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All those abstaining?
Abstaining.
Thank you.
401.
Motion carries 401.
And then just for the record, as a conditional use, this board has to issue a formal written decision, which must be submitted to the applicant within the next 45 days. I have requested the court stenographer to transcribe the hearing testimony. I will draft a decision for the board's consideration, which I hope to have to you within the next 28 days at the latest.
Great. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, court reporter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate all your kind attention, and tell Fred that we're all going out and applying for Sapphire cards. John. Oh, I got it wrong. It's the second time tonight.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone.
Madam Chair, since I'm not needed, I don't believe for anything else. May I be excused?
Of course, Barbara. Thank you so much for your help tonight.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Barb.
Okay.
Joe, I think you can go as well.
And we don't need Barbara when we talk about Airbnb?
I can handle that because it's the advertisement of the ordinance I have with me. Okay. I can discuss the general proposed changes that go in the advertisement.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave.
Sure.
Okay, so then we're moving on to agenda item number 9, engineer report.
Yes, hello, supervisors. You have within your packet my engineer's report. I have one brief update to that. We did receive the contracts for the 2021 road program signed from Harris Blacktopping. So I will be delivering them to the township for signature tomorrow. So the schedule then is probably sometime next week. I'm going to schedule a pre-construction meeting with the contractor, and then subsequent to that, they will be out, and most likely they will be completing their inlet repairs first. So they won't be out milling and overlaying roadways right away, but work on the 2021 road program is set to commence shortly. So with that, I'll move on to the agenda items. The first item is to consider authorization of escrow release number 1 for the Octagon Center, the office condominium phase 2, which is the Lightbridge Academy, in the amount of $321,200. That would be the full and final release for this project. The work has been completed on site. We've inspected that work, and it is acceptable. Therefore, we're requesting authorization for escrow release number 1 in the amount of $321,200. There is a maintenance bond. I believe a check has been received by the township in the amount of $29,159.93.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Dan. Seconded by Fred. Any discussion?
No.
Nope. Or yes?
I'll ask the normal. Andy, I think you said it, but there's nothing outstanding. They've checked all the boxes, covered everything, and they're good, right?
Yes.
And they covered their maintenance bond. So
yes,
good.
Any other discussion? Monica, is there any public comment?
There's no public comment.
And with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
The next item is to consider authorization of escrow release number 2 for the Yardley Preserve development. This is the development that was formerly known as the Aaron development. It is on the north side of Dobry Road. The work is ongoing. We have inspected the work contained within the release, and the work has been completed. So therefore, we would request authorization for escrow release number 2 for the Yardley Preserve development in the amount of $229,058.00. The amount remaining within that escrow for the performance of that work is over $2 million.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Fred. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, James. Any discussion? Andy, please answer Dan's questions.
Yes, work has been completed
To your satisfaction.
to my satisfaction.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Monica, any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
The next item is to consider the award of the entrance improvements project for the Township Community Center. If you remember, we had put this out for bid. The bid opening was on April 1st. We had 45 people pick up the bid package. However, we received no bids for the project, and therefore there's no motion required to award. We are working with township staff on putting this back out for bid as quickly as possible.
Okay, well then, I think you're done.
I believe so. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Agenda item number 10, Kurt, project updates.
Thank you. I'd like to go to item number B. In my manager's report, I had outlined, this is for the public if you don't have the agenda, this is for the Memorial Park project. This has gone through several iterations. If you'll all recall, last year, we actually had this budgeted. We have a $250,000 grant, and we had the $250,000 match that was sitting there that we pulled back in the midst of the pandemic out of an abundance of caution regarding the township's finances. We did not budget to do this project this year. However, as I had outlined in my manager's report, we have a fee in lieu of fund for park and recreation that must be used for new items. So in other words, we could build a new tennis court with it. We could not fix an old one, or we could build a new trail. We could not repair an old one. Well, the amount of revenue, and that is not taxpayer money, that is money that we collect from developers, is in excess of $200,000. I believe it's about $210,000. We will have more money coming in about the next 4 to 6 weeks. I was putting out there for the board its interest in moving forward with the Memorial Park project and utilizing that money as the match. It would not take long for us to put this out to bid. As I had indicated, Andy and Remington Vernick staff have finalized a lot of these details. However, I'm not asking you all to make a decision tonight. It's just if you would like to have at the April 21st meeting, Andy sort of represent, I think we've reconfigured a bit how we would put this out for bid. That we would do this sort of in phase 1, which would include the tennis/pickleball courts, the trail, the concrete pad for where the playground equipment would go, where the pavilion would go, and the additional paving that we would need for the increased parking. To include that potentially as phase 1, where we would get, again, if the board was interested, where we would put that out for bid, get the quotes on that, see where that lands us. Because Jim has got his camera off, his staff has sort of discussed, in the end, if we had to make some revisions to, let's say, the size of the pavilion or some of the equipment that we would use for the playground equipment, it would give us time in putting a second bid out for those remaining items to adjust that if we needed to. We could have the presentation from Andy. He's already done it once at the second April meeting, contemplating doing that. I think it's our belief as well where this is located would not interfere with 9/11 events this year, especially, which are very important. And even if we were to bid that out and work was still going on, we would have a provision in the agreement that they'd have to stop, let's say, the week of and after, so it would not have any sort of visual interference, sound, anything like that. But again, that's up to the board, and that would require a decision if you wanted to use that fee in lieu of money as the match to move on the project this year.
Yes, John?
So the plan's essentially the same as it was previously?
The plan is the same. I think the way we would put this out for bid would differ slightly with what I had said. So instead of putting the whole thing out, including the playground equipment, pavilion, what have you, we would start with this, as I had outlined, as sort of what could go out first and see where pricing is. But yes, it would stay essentially the same as what you had presented to you all last year.
Okay, I'm comfortable if my fellow board members would be comfortable for placing out phase one for bid now. I don't have any issues with that. So just that's my perception based on the fact that we've gone through the design review process on this. It's an existing off-the-shelf project. And if we get it in faster, we're likely to get a better price than if we wait. And we want to get in before the summer. If we want to go that route, sooner is better on this one. So I would strongly support going for bid now on that. Normally I'm one to wait, but given where we're at project-wise, if we've got something shovel-ready and we can queue it up, I think that's in our best interest for pricing.
Yes, Dan?
I don't disagree with that, but my question, Kurt, is more in terms of the match. You know, what we have available for the match right now is a little short of a 50-50, assuming a 250-250. But I'm not the Park and Rec liaison, so I don't recall the specifics. But I do believe that the applicants we saw tonight will have a significant recreation fee in lieu as part of their project. I don't know the numbers, but I believe it would put us well over that additional $50K for the match. Is that correct?
That's correct. And there's other projects as well where we have revenue coming in as we speak, actually, that in and of itself will put us close. I do not have concerns that we would not be able to make up that $30,000 or $40,000 by the end of this budget year, well in advance of that.
Okay, that's my main, with every meeting we've had about budget items over the last several months, as you know, that I've had some concern about different things, but when it's a fee in lieu that's not coming, that's not coming out of the taxpayers' pockets, and we have grant ready, shovel ready project, I would say let's get it done as quickly as we can for best pricing.
And in regards to Supervisor Lewis, the point he made, I think, is a valid one. The quicker we get this out, the quicker where we see where that pricing comes in. And then if we want to go back to back with a secondary bid to go out there for playground equipment, the pavilion, what have you, we still would have time, I think, then, John, to get that out and to get those in and to have this as a project that the community can see come to fruition this year.
So I make a motion to bid out phase one of the Memorial Park upgrade program as outlined by the township manager.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
If you don't mind, I guess, Kurt, just to be clear, are we ready for that? Are we absolutely right? Okay. I just want to make sure. It's been a little while since we presented and really gotten into this one. I just want to make sure things are prepped and ready to go if we're going to do that. That's all.
Yeah, and the only thing that would change a little bit would be the spec, in that we had anticipated doing all of this at once. We're just going to piece out what I had outlined there, but it's not like any part of that has changed. It'll just be what we're cutting out of that full project is just like in the phase one, like Supervisor Lewis had said, would be all that we'd have to do internally before we put that bid out.
Okay. Could you give a 10-second version of how you would envision that I'll say double bid process would go in terms of likely time frame?
Well, I don't know. I'll talk to Andy and Jim here. When we put this out for bid, what do we think is a reasonable time frame to respond?
3 weeks.
So let's just for
minimum.
Let's just say then, for argument's sake, we said a month. And if it went out tonight, we could essentially approve at one of our May meetings if there's a bid that satisfies the board. We would then have an idea of pricing, even leading into that board approval, for how much room under the 500,000 we had to tweak the remainder of the plans to even come back to you at that same meeting and say, we can go with 2 right now to advertise now by that second May meeting, I would imagine.
So out of curiosity, if we use the approach we used with the roads this year, if we went out with, let's say, alternate bids all at the same time.
Can you put your mic?
Sorry. Thank you. If we use an alternate bid approach, could that potentially help us speed it up just a hair if we included alternate bids in that first round? Or would it be advisable to not include alternate bids?
If I could speak, I think that when we received bids last time for the full scope of work, there were several contractors. We got bids that were significantly higher than our estimates, and we had contractors who came out and told us that part of the reason was because of the nature of the additional work was such that it would require multiple subcontractors that they would then have to keep an eye on. And there's a certain
markup
that's associated with that. And so I think that, what you're gaining in speed, you're giving up in price.
Okay.
And if I could also add, Dan, one of the alternatives that we would look at is there's several purchasing alliances that we're in, much like co-stars that are bid out, that now include things like playground equipment, where it's not just the cost of the equipment. They will quote out, and it's pre-bid out, installation as well. So we would investigate those options, that there might be an opportunity to go off a consortium list that way for playground equipment that in and of itself may be more efficient and less expensive as well. So we could even bid it and then compare that with the consortium pricing that we would get as a follow-up bid right after this one was out.
That's all I have for questions. Thank you, folks.
Any of the other supervisors have any questions? Monica, is there any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Then with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
A couple other things in that project update that I want to provide very quickly. The first, you'll notice that I updated that Woodside Bike Path project. We had put in for a multimodal grant. As Andy had reported to me here recently, those reviews have been suspended indefinitely at this point. When we have an update about possibilities, we'll certainly provide it. That's obviously a project that we already have $125,000 set aside. We have a grant towards soft cost of that to about $55,000 to $60,000. So we still have a portion of that money there. Just to remind you all, the project as we had priced it out in the 2021 budget was $625,000. We'll have to continue to look for other opportunities for that. I wanted you to be aware. If you look at item E and F,
Kurt, can I ask a question on that one? On the recreation fee in lieu that we had, how we use that on the Memorial Park, would that be an option for something like this, whether it's this project or something else, or is that outside the bounds of what you can use it for?
No, you could, new construction. So okay. New path, new tennis court, new whatever. You just can't fix old stuff with it, which, as we know, one of the discussions we've had is about starting to prioritize repairs that we need. And unfortunately, this is all for new. So yes, as new money comes in, if we want to start talking about using that for anything, the Woodside Bike Path like that certainly is eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so item E and F that we have on there, I'm anticipating, he's not here now, Joe Fiacco coming to the next meeting to present the final Big Oak Makefield Road signal project. He's ready to go to PennDOT. He's made a few changes with it. He's coordinated with Chief Caluzzi's staff, with Tom Roach, on some other changes the police would like to see. I'd like you all to see that, to sort of have the final sign off before he goes to PennDOT with that. I'm hopeful that on April 21st that we'll be prepared to have a motion to advertise for the Route 332 and Mirror Lake signalization project, to hopefully put that out for bid on the 21st. Can I move to manager's report?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. The first item I have for your consideration, I had placed in my manager's report. The Public Works Director, Greg Huckelbridge, had also put in, was the first is to authorize the purchase of a JCB 3CX backhoe at a total cost of $102,282.75. This was budgeted. It's out of the Road Machinery Fund. This will be followed with either the next meeting or the first in May. Financing proposals, as we finance these on 3-year short-term lease arrangements. We did budget the cost of this being at about $106,000 and change, so it is just short of $4,000 less than we budgeted, which is good, but I'd ask for that consideration.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
James is the motion maker. Fred is the seconder. Any discussion? Any public comment?
There's no public comment.
With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0.
Second item, also, again, same narrative behind it, but it's to purchase a loader, JCB 2M 420 loader at a total net cost of $99,223.51. We did budget for this at $111,000. Again, this would be financed, and that financing will be before you in a subsequent meeting. But I'm asking for that approval tonight.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Fred.
Okay.
Yes, Dan, discussion?
Kurt, since we're financing, when, I know you said three years for the last one. I thought I heard you say this one's probably something similar. So when we look at the annual budgets, when will each of the, how much per year do you think that hits our budget?
Well, you mean for this year?
Yeah. It's not the full 111 or 99. I'm sorry.
No, we're paying it over 3 years.
Right.
So we budgeted for 2 quarterly payments for each of those for 2021. So this would be paid off essentially in 2025. So it's 12 quarterly payments, with 2 of those quarterly payments being this year.
Okay, so it's not a 200 between the two purchases, not a $200,000 hit to the budget this year. That's what I wanted to clarify to everyone.
Give me 1 second.
You don't have to do the math.
I can't. I got it right here. I knew you were going to ask.
Better.
So I actually really do have it right here, Dan. So
okay.
1 second. So for this year, we budgeted for the wheel loader to be about $19,000 this year. So that'd be 2 quarterly payments of about $9,500, and for the backhoe, we budgeted for that to be $18,000 this year. So 2 quarterly payments of about $9,000.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm on mute. Any other discussion? Monica, any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0.
I'll quickly try to get through the rest of these. Item C, I'm asking for consideration to approve or execute a supplemental agreement with PennDOT updating our winter services agreement. As I outlined in my report, we get money from PennDOT to salt and plow Dolington Road. So our public works director now, as we all have settled in, examined that agreement and was suspicious that that longstanding agreement with PennDOT was inaccurate. He asked for an audit of that, which they provided, and they did determine that it was inaccurate. So this will change the annual payment that they make to the township from $2,191.82 to $7,780.95. So it's an increase of just a shade under $5,590. So I do want to thank the Public Works Director. It is this accumulation of all of these various items where we're looking for savings or things that have been inaccurate. He found it, and I'm asking for the board to help us amend that agreement to do so tonight.
So moved. And thank you, Greg.
Second. Thank you again, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. Any discussion?
Thank you, Greg.
Greg knows I love him, so I don't need to thank him again, but shout out, make it unanimous.
Any public comment?
There's no public comment.
Thought maybe Greg's wife would call in. All right, well, that I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
In your packets, we provided to you the copy of the results of the Bucks County Consortium bid for asphalt and stone material for 2021-2022. I would ask for consideration to award as presented.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, James.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? Monica, any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Final item for me. I'm asking for consideration for payment request number 3 to AJM Electric for the Brookstone Pump Station upgrade electrical contract in the amount of $20,515.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Fred. Second?
Second.
Dan? Sorry, James. I thought you, anyway.
Fingers.
I wasn't loud enough. I'm sorry.
Any discussion? Yes, Dan.
Quick question, Kurt. That's their request. How are we within the budget for their request?
Right now, it's right on. There's $10,580 left. So we still are holding money from them.
Okay. That's all.
Any other discussion? Monica, any public comment?
No public comment.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
All those are you a late aye, John, or an opposed? You're on mute.
I'm a late aye.
Okay. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay. May I ask Kurt a manager question since we're in the manager's report section?
Sure. Of course.
Okay. Kurt, how are we on our schedule for, not schedule, but how are we moving along with the, I forget what we're calling it, but just the shutter painting and various fixes to the sills at our historic home there?
Shutters are back up. They were sanded down. There was a problem with 1 or 2 that you're aware. Those were sanded, inspected by Greg when they went up. 2 of the sills that we had originally anticipated doing are finished. The 2 additional sills that I sent you some pictures on regarding the casing that just sort of from age had some issues. I've given Greg the go-ahead to get those 2 done as well. I don't have a time frame on that, but I would imagine they'd get to that fairly quickly, and that work will be done. That no payment has been made to that contractor yet.
So on the ones that you said were sanded down and fixed, are those the? We received a few photos of, I'll say, less than great paint jobs on a couple of them. We've all painted stuff. We know how that goes. But is that what you're referring to? They you recognize that was an issue and you fixed it, right?
They did, and they were very apologetic about that. What happened was they've done a lot of that work. With the weather being as bad as it was, they agreed at no cost to keep that in their shop this entire time. As the weather got very bad, as we know, like in February and March. And I just think in that time they just got sort of tacky and didn't dry as well inside. And they sanded them down, took care of that. The public works director was out to make sure that none of those issues remained, and they're all rehung and should be okay.
Good. And the last question I have on it, again, one of the pictures, it looked like they had painted the hardware to kind of stick to the shutter on just the one picture that I saw.
Shouldn't be the case any longer.
Shouldn't be the case anymore. That's a good answer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for following up on all
that. No, thanks. And listen, I will say, in part of this, Greg has been bird dogging this. He was not out there when I think the two shutters that were put up that way, but there's no problem with the contractor. Even if that would not have come forward, he would not have let that stay that way, and Greg would have caught that. But should all be fixed at this point.
Thank you for following up. Thanks, Greg, I guess. Right?
No, we have thanks everybody.
Yeah, I know. I had to tease Greg.
Okay, with that, we're moving along to agenda item number 12, the solicitor's report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. An executive session was held tonight commencing at 6:30 p.m., which ended at 7:15 p.m. Supervisors Blundy, McCartney, Weiss, and Lewis attended the executive session along with Mr. Ferguson, Chief Calusi, and myself. Issues and items related to real estate, litigation, and informational items were discussed. Going on to the first item under my report, consideration to approve amendment of responsible contractor ordinance as advertised. Hopefully the board and the public will recall that we've had some discussions about reducing the review period for the public to inspect contracts that we deemed are recurring, and the definition of recurrent contracts will be determined by the township manager with the assistance and input of one or more of the respective staff members. So to do that, we advertise the ordinance with the approval of the board, and is now ready to be approved as advertised.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Dan. Second. Thank you, John. Any discussion? Any public comment? Monica, you're on mute.
No public comment. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. I should be on mute. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Next is to consider advertising, not at passing, but advertising amendments to Chapter 130 of the Code of Ordinances related to Article 1, short-term lodging facilities. As the board and the public may recall, this board in the last 2 to 3 years enacted a short-term lodging ordinance, which with the passage of time and some experience requires some tweaking. My colleague, Barbara Kirk, who was here earlier tonight, did some research and some review of some ordinances in other municipalities, primarily up in the Pocono area, because that's frankly where most of the challenges of the litigation have occurred. There have been proposed changes that will be out for advertisement if the board approves. And I'll just go through generally what they reflect. The intent is going to be expanded more of the ordinance, so it's clear what the purpose of this is. Definitions will be included, including the term bedroom, rental, short-term lodging, to make it very explicit as to what type of circumstances addressed. License requirements and conditions will be much more detailed and require oversight and a periodic review. And then performance standards and conditions for those places that would hold themselves out to be short-term lodging facilities or Airbnbs or whatever the circumstance may be. And also reviewing of marketing so that the township has an opportunity to determine if what is being represented actually does satisfy the ordinance without getting into too much detail. Some may recall that we've been involved in some litigation for the last over a year. Off and on, in one particular circumstance, the township has succeeded in that every time, but it was felt that it would be helpful to have some more specific terms that might perhaps shut off the opportunity for litigation to ensue if those circumstances did arise. So with that, we would just ask for the board to approve the advertisement. This does not mean, even though we think it's ready to be approved after it's advertised, that the board or others may not have some input to require some further tweaking. So that's still available to the board after this is advertised and comes back to the board for consideration for enactment.
Is there a motion?
I move that we advertise the proposed amendments to the short-term lodging facilities article in the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 130. I was pleased to see that in section, the intent, section B15 was fixed.
John, can we just get a second before you comment on the motion?
Sure.
Thank you. Is there a second? James?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, I was pleased that that was fixed, and while I'm certainly open to tweaks on it, I'm pleased that we passed that a couple of years ago. We were ahead of the curve against other municipalities, and I am happy I took the abuse for that I did, and I'm pleased with the outcome. And for those who, I believe I was called Kim Jong-un for that one, and now my hair is really messed up, so I could be close, but that ordinance has helped resolve issues for neighbors in the community, and I think these tweaks are constructive and will help us on the path there. So I'm hopeful. I think they're relatively helpful. So,
any other, Dan?
Say hi to your dogs.
Sorry, Dan, we rescued a new dog and she's quite skittish. She came from a bad situation. So I know she's been barking all night. My apologies, everybody.
Well, hey, we have 2 rescues at home. We appreciate what you're doing there, especially for dogs that have not had the best start to the life. I know you'll give her a good one. Let's see, Dave, not that I have any more edits to make, but in terms of if someone or folks look at the board looks at this and says, oops, we'd like to change something, what next time around, we'd have to re-advertise, correct?
If it's a substantive change, the advice would be yes. The purpose of this would be hopefully to give everybody the opportunity to see it. Not that they wouldn't have had that already in some respects, but it gives everybody a chance to weigh in. And if the board wants to make some substantive changes based upon the input, we would have to re-advertise, but it would be, again, an effort to make sure that we get it right. I think with everybody's input we've had so far, if we're not there, we're darn close. But still, to your point, this is what's being asked tonight is not to approve the ordinance, the amendment itself, but just to put it out there for public review and consumption.
I'm just being cheap, Dave. That's all.
Well, no,
financially conscious.
But that is that's a point that we do try to get it right the first time. Yeah. But as you indicated, if we have to advertise again, there's a cost associated with that. So
yeah, and I do think that's I think it was Ms. Kirk took into consideration some of the concerns we had with a couple of the sections nicely. So
thank you. I'll relay that to her. I know that one of the things that helps all of us is when and the practice started, I guess, a couple of years ago when we had these as discussion items first and then there was a lot of input. So then once it's presented, it's hopefully closer, if not at the final product stage. So that without having the advertisement, the advertising cost to be incurred at that point. So, right. Yep.
I have no further comments or questions.
Anyone else? Monica, is there any public comment?
There's no public comment on this.
With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And finally, I think for me tonight, there's one zoning hearing board appeal application, K&S Pools and Patios for Jay Bayless, tax parcel number 20-057-090. The applicant is requesting a variance from the Township Zoning Ordinance 200-23B in order to install an in-ground fiberglass pool, concrete decking, which would increase the impervious surface from the existing 19.5% to 22.3%, where 18% is the allowable amount. Two things. Again, I will appreciate Katie McMahon providing very detailed information when these applications are received. Number one, it is not in the flood zone. Number two, I believe on the application, if I read it right on the plans, there already is a proposal for an infiltration trench. Certainly the zoning hearing board would request that. Given that, we recommend that the board defer to the zoning hearing board. And if you agree with that, there's no vote required. Or if you want to vote to affirmatively say you want to defer, you can do that as well. Or do something else.
I just would like to point out, as much as I like to give Katie kudos, that Katie is no longer in that position. So this was provided by the new staff member, Jamie, that is being trained by Katie. So I'm sure she'll do equally well.
Thank you, because it came from Katie's email, so I appreciate you saying that. So, okay, very good. Thank you.
Amy, Katie, Jim, Greg, everybody doing a great job.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. And so then I think we're moving right along to public comment.
We have one public comment from Lee.
Great. Lee, give us your full name. Hi, Lee. Can you give us your full name and address, please?
Well, this is the second time in the barrel, so it's Lee Pedowitz at 247 Truman Way. Chair Blundy, just a quick question. Will the township be getting any of the stimulus money that's being made available?
Yes, and then I'm going to let Kurt give you some more information because I think we're still waiting for specifics.
Yeah, the township, along with every other municipality in Pennsylvania, was given the aggregate number of what their allocation would be. Lower Makefield Township was about $3.2 million. However, there is no specifics about how that can be used. So some have talked, and there's managers groups that are talking that think that maybe this could be like stimulus money. Like, years ago, there was stimulus money where municipalities could use it for various projects around their respective communities. There's been no indication, though, that that is the case. There's been other indications that would be for towns that experience shortfalls in certain categories of their budget, like if they ran in deficit in particular funds, that they could access this money to make up for those shortfalls during what would be deemed a defined period of time, whether that be calendar year or something beyond that. If that was the case, then you would be drawing on that $3.2 million and not necessarily being entitled to all of it. So we don't have any of those details yet. And as they emerge, I would obviously be presenting that to the board for what those opportunities would be.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, somebody is going to tell us how to spend the money. We might not get the full amount. And I imagine this won't be for a while yet.
I don't have a time frame. And so, again, whether it's tell us how to spend it or tell us if we can reimburse ourselves for shortfalls or what have you. But essentially, what you're saying is correct. We would be given what the provisions would be to use or reimburse ourselves at some point. I don't have a time frame. I would imagine it would be this calendar year, but I don't have a specific time frame yet.
Okay, Kurt, thank you very much. Everybody have a good evening.
Good night, Lee. Be well.
Good night.
Monica, any other public comment?
Yes, Robert is on the line.
Excellent. Robert, please state your full name and address for the record.
Robert.
All right, how about now?
There you go.
Okay. Robert Abrams, 652 Teach Drive. Question, was any monies taken from the bond debt fund? There was talk here about using allocated funds for bond debt and moving them out of that fund, which is an identified fund, and moving it into the roads money.
So, Robert, I think what you're talking about is that we had put forth as a discussion item a way to possibly pave more roads in the future. But no, that project hasn't gone any further than discussion. Go ahead, Kurt.
Okay, that's fine. There was a discussion
hold on
at the school board meeting.
I may have gotten something.
There was a school board meeting last night.
Robert.
And it's an allocated fund. And hold on, that's taxpayer money. If anything's going to get done with that money from an allocated fund, it's coming back to the taxpayers. I don't care whether it's a penny or $1 million per. Okay? But that is an allocated fund.
Mr. Abrams, if I could answer the question, let me answer your question. My presentation did not suggest in any way that paving money or that bond money would be used to pave. Never. That is not where it would come from. That was not the presentation. So I have not given anything to the board that would suggest we would take bond proceeds money sitting in that account and use it for paving. And that was not part of my presentation.
All right. Well, nothing's been done, so it's a mute issue right now. The next issue is we got one contractor running around this township, in my personal opinion, destroying everything what Lower Makefield is about. All right. And that's got to be a problem. Now, if there are 5 or 6 developers doing different things within the township, then you might say, okay, well, yeah, I guess the township here was ripe for some development. But we got one guy here that's collecting all of these projects and getting all of these variances, and I'm starting to ask a whole lot of questions about how he's doing it. Now, let's get back to the money here, and something that was said. I missed a couple meetings, and I'm sorry, but I've had some issues. All right? Mr. Way said something about how he's invested all of this money for everybody else and how he has a great retirement, whatever. Well, I semi-retired at 55. Okay, so I don't need that. But the investments that were made for this township, especially in that tower, and especially what's going on with this Wegmans, as far as I'm concerned, is garbage. They won't turn over any lease or any agreement with Wegmans. That's a problem because the apartments are going to go up first. Wegmans is going to disappear. And then what are you going to do? They're going to go to court and they're going to claim, oh, we put all this money in here. You can't do this to us.
Robert.
And the taxpayers are going to take it on the chin. Good night.
Good night, Robert. Have a good night. I hope things are going better for you. Monica, is there any other public comment?
There is no further public comment.
Okay. Then moving along to discussion items. Any discussion items? Then moving along to supervisors' reports. And I will go first, and mine will be brief because there have been no meetings since we have last met, so I have no update. James?
I have no updates at this time.
Fred?
I have no report at this time.
Thank you. John?
Limited report for you. Next week, the Trenton Mercer Citizens Airport Review Board will be meeting. In the interim, we've had some initial discussions with Senator Casey's staff, Senator Toomey's staff through email, and Representative Fitzpatrick's staff. At this time, we've gotten letters to the FAA and a response from the FAA from a letter I wrote on behalf of the board. And we have not heard yet back from the New Jersey DEP. Representative Fitzpatrick has also written the FAA, and we're working through letters from the senators as well. So that process continues. And that's all I have at this time.
Thank you. Dan?
Sure. Planning Commission met. We already heard about what went on there, so I don't need to repeat that.
Microphone.
How about now?
Good.
Can you hear me now? Okay, good.
Members.
And then the Electric Reliability Committee is meeting tomorrow evening. This should be a more. I shouldn't say it that way. This will be an especially interesting Electric Reliability Committee meeting because a PICO regulatory affairs representative, public affairs representative, will be appearing in front of the Electric Reliability Committee to give a presentation and answer several questions that the ERC has had over the course of the last year or so. very, very interested to hear and interested to see what's presented and to hear their responses. Hopefully we will have a chance to listen, kind of let it marinate, and have some more ideas to later on have the same folks come in front of the Board of Supervisors to answer additional questions, clarify things that may come out of that meeting. That meeting, one sec, John. That meeting is public. It's at 7:30, just like this one. It will be held. You can call in just like this one, or watch it on Facebook, YouTube, Township website, etc. Would encourage anyone to participate who has had, wants to just hear about how the electric grid in Lower Makefield works on one level, and hear about projects that have gone on or are planned in the future. And obviously, if you have recurring issues, you can make those known as well to the PICO representative. But very excited to finally get this meeting done.
And with that,
John, did you have a question about that?
No, you got me. You were right on target. You knew what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Public comment.
Yeah, no, and I'll give a plug for Suzanne. I think nice addition to the agenda there, Supervisor Blundy, are I don't know if I even know all of these things here. I think it's Facebook, Twitter. Is that Instagram? I'm not on Insta. Thank you. YouTube, I know. I'm assuming that's email. I don't know what that one's supposed to be. And ReadyBucks.
these are all the different ways you can stay in touch and understand what's going on in the township. You can click on them at the bottom of the agenda. Thank you, Monica, for putting them there. And, we're doing our best to get you all types of information as easily as we can. So,
and Suzanne, one thing I will say, I won't call myself a guinea pig, but the reason I was a few minutes tardy this evening was my second COVID shot was scheduled today. I went through the Bucks County website, scheduled it that way, and I went to the Neshaminy Mall site, and my first shot took a little over an hour. There was a long line, and as you would expect, this evening, walked right in and gave my information and did it pretty quickly. If you see me a little redder in the face, it's because I believe I'm having a little bit of a reaction tonight, but everything went well, and I would encourage everyone to get vaccinated as quickly as you can. It's running very smoothly at this point, I think, after some early issues. So I'll throw that out there.
great. Hope you continue to feel well. Stay hydrated. Yeah, that's key. Other business. Appointments to boards and commissions. James?
Yes, Suzanne, thank you. I would like to make a motion to put Debbie Senko on the 9/11 committee.
Second.
Thank you, John. Any comment, discussions, public comment? That being said, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Welcome, Debbie. 5-0. There being no further business of the board, this meeting is adjourned. Everyone have a great night. See you soon.
Good night. Thanks, guys.
Good night, all. Be well, Dan.